that author that you mentioned,
That what?
the author that you mentioned last time, the 48 laws of
Yeah.
power.
Mr. Green? Mm-hmm.
I read that maybe the first 20% of that main book, the 48 laws of power,
Yeah.
in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and it was quite disturbing.
You think so?
Yeah, I felt like the depth, but it was all about dissection. Like it was just like literally, how can you cheat everybody and anybody in every way? That's what it felt.
That's why you need to learn it.
Learn it so you don't get.
So it's not happen to you. You know how people think. That's what I like about him. He talks about things as they are. It's not like researchers that are all living in their fantasy land, completely disconnected from reality.
Yeah, I think I read the book initially with the mindset without knowing what it was going to entail. Like, okay, how can I obtain these laws? And then it was just like, wait, you want me to do this, this, and this, rather than keep an eye out for it.
Keep an eye out for it. But not everything he says is unethical.
Yeah, I think the first one, but don't outshine your master.
Which is true, right?
Yeah, it's true. Some of them.
That boxing story really like messed me up on. Do you remember that one?
Oh, the con?
The boxing con?
Yeah.
It was like 7 levels of deception.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. So regarding your midterm, inshallah, after this class, I'll send you a link on the WhatsApp group. So it's a Google form. It's not open book. It's not, not a group test to do on your own time. Please turn it in by the end of the day. It should be pretty straightforward. The last few questions, you can choose multiple options, right? So they're boxes, so you can choose multiple. So if you think there are more than one answer, then choose as many as you think are correct, and each one is worth a point. All right. Okay, so last time we began talking about or discussing the question of whether or not everything in the Quran is equally important. Right? We also spoke about the thesis and whatnot. And I began with this triangle here, right? And I placed at the first level Tawheed. And from here, we began to discuss or to reflect on why Tawheed is the foundation, right? We always get the theological side. We want it to be more than just a theological understanding. We want it to understand how it's meant to impact our lives on a day-to-day basis. And while that is a whole broad topic, we started to zero in on 3 aspects of Tawheed, and that is this concept of love, hope, and fear. That essentially, Tawheed, when properly rooted in the heart, will begin to shape, shift, redraw, guide, moderate these three experiences of the human being, right? And why are these 3 incredibly critical? And the answer is as follows. If you look at the basic human function of choice, when you make a choice, what guides your decision? You make a choice based on what exactly, right? And Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah theorizes that every single human being and every choice that they make, they do it based on what they believe they will benefit them or will protect them from harm, right? You do what you do, you refrain from whatever you refrain from because you perceive that in doing that, there's some aspect of good that you're going to bring to yourself or some harm that you are preventing yourself from experiencing. And he says that is another way of expressing love, right? In your love of yourself, you do this. When you love someone, you want to benefit them, you want to protect them. When you despise someone, you want to prevent benefit from reaching them and you want to harm them, right? So the human being, the way we function psychologically speaking, is that we do what we perceive is within our love. We do what we do out of love, right? Not Western love. So when I say love, don't think of Hollywood. Think of just the human experience, right? So everything revolves around love, and hope and fear are essentially the wings of love, or the primary expressions of love. When you love something, you have hope in that thing or for that thing, and you fear losing that thing, right? I don't want to go into too much detail here, but Tawheed comes and now centers your existence around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and begins to show you why Allah is important to you and why it's in your best interest to be on Allah's side, and why it's harmful to be distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the more you acknowledge that, the more you realize it is in your best interest to be with Allah, to submit to Allah. And out of love of yourself, you begin to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's how it starts, right? So Tawheed is the primary, the most important element of Islam. Everything else revolves around it. So remember, what is the thesis? What is the thesis of the Quran?
Tawheed.
Right? Tawheed. No, not the thesis. The thesis. What verse in the Quran did we say is the thesis?
Oh, okay, sure. Okay.
No, that's the last verse in the Quran.
إياك
إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. Right? And when I spoke about how it's the thesis, what does that mean?
It encompasses everything that is in
The
the
statement that everything else revolves around, or it's fine.
Right? It's a statement that the rest of the Quran revolves around. In other words, every verse in the Quran is going to teach you how to worship Allah, or how Allah is assisting you, or how to get Allah's assistance. Every single verse, whether it directly says so or not. Right? So if you were to take a random verse in the Quran, let's just take when Yusuf alayhi salam went to jail. You could sit there looking at the historical elements here. You could look at some of the da'wah benefits there. Of course, all of that is valid. But if you want to get to the core of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching you here, you're going to ask yourself the question, Yusuf alayhi salam, his experience, how is that teaching me to worship Allah, or how Allah is there with me despite maybe difficulties or seemingly bleak situation, right? Now, the rest of the religion in terms of action, in terms of belief, right, essentially gives shape to Tawheed as more than just a theoretical concept, as more than just an abstract concept, right? And so the rest of the religion, from all the pillars and all the pillars of Iman and all the pillars of Islam and all of the Sunnah practices and all the nafil and all the virtuous behaviors and all of that, is either strengthening your Tawheed, your relationship to Allah, preserving it, maintaining it, right? So all of the rest of the elements are expressions of Tawheed. Now, the next layer I would give to the Day of Judgment. Right? And while the Day of Judgment is a pillar of Iman, along with other pillars, the Day of Judgment essentially answers an incredibly important question to the human experience that is also integral to choice. And that is where things are going. What is the end? All right. The human being acts based on where they want to be. Right? They always consider what the end result is going to be. For you all who are in high school or went to high school or you're in college, I'm guessing none of you studies because they enjoy studying. I'm guessing nobody's thrilled to take an exam. Nobody goes to class, yes, today's the exam. But you will study. Why? Because you want to learn? Maybe I could learn without there being exams, right? You most likely study because you don't want to get a bad grade. You don't want to fail, right? And why you don't want to fail could be because I want to succeed in life, or it could be because I don't want my parents to start yelling at me, right? One of those two things. It goes back to that. But in the end, is that in your interest or no? It's in your best interest, right? So the human brain is wired in a way where we're constantly considering the consequences, the results of what we do. And this is why we're always stressing out. We're afraid for what might come, what could come. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the day of judgment so that we human beings, we know where we're going. And so in thousands of verses in the Quran, we're being reminded of the day of judgment. Hey, there's this day coming. There's this day coming. To the extent that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I mean, point blank says, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِهِ. Those who believe in the afterlife believe in the Quran, right? So there is this connection between Iman and the belief in the afterlife, where it is literally the strength of your Iman is proportionate to the strength of your relationship to the afterlife. So if you want Iman, you want stronger Iman, strengthen your relationship with the afterlife. Okay? So Tawheed teaches you your origins, where you come from. The Day of Judgment teaches you where you are going. And you as a human being, you cannot function properly if you don't know these two, right? I'll give you an example. If I were to say that there is a movie and the movie revolves around an orphan, and this orphan has wonderful foster parents, but the child is stressed out. The orphan is like they're uneasy. So the movie's about them going on a journey. What do you think that journey is? If you were just to guess what that journey is, what is it? To find their parents, right? It's almost a no-brainer. Even though they had wonderful foster parents, they just have to know who their parents are. And it doesn't necessarily mean because they want to go and live with their parents. It has nothing to do with their parents. It has to do with them. The human being needs to know where they come from, right? Hence, throughout all of human history, societies were very adamant or very enthusiastic about who their father was, where they're coming from, the stories of old and all of that stuff. It's intertwined within us, right? So Tawheed teaches us Allah created us. That's our origins. That's where we come from. And the Day of Judgment teaches us where we're going. When we know those two, we better know how to function within, right? And don't buy into the culture of, live life without a plan, live it day by day and all of this stuff. Yeah, there are elements of our lives we need to live day by day. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't know where you want to be tomorrow, you don't know what to do today. If you don't know where you want to be tomorrow, you don't know what to do today. If you don't know what you want your career to be in, how on earth are you going to choose your major? How? And if you don't know what you want to major in, how are you going to choose your classes? Once you're done with all the electives, what are you going to choose? I don't know, right? So having an idea of where you want to be guides you today, helps you make decisions today. So the Day of Judgment comes next. And then, of course, you have the remaining pillars, both of Iman and Islam. And each one has a unique function, but you can take that in Aqidah. Now, after the pillars, right, what do you think is next? Sunnahs? All right, any other guesses?
Like legislation or social law.
Okay, I don't know. Come on, you know it. We'll say the obligations and the prohibitions. Because not every obligation is a pillar, right? So the obligations and the prohibitions, essentially what was made obligatory because it is incredibly important in preserving your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what was made prohibited because it has considerable harm to your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's take, for example, the consumption of alcohol. The consumption of alcohol, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes in the Quran, right? رجس من عمل الشيطان إنما يريد الشيطان أن يوقع بينكم العداوة والبغضاء ويصدكم عن ذكر الله وعن الصلاة. Alcohol, intoxicants, will cause animosity between people. And if people are at odds with each other, their entire focus is going to be on dealing with that, not on Allah, right? So a society that's unstable is a society that does not have the time to build a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it distracts you from salah and from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's telling us here that it has a direct impact on our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, therefore it was made prohibited, right? Okay, what about after the obligations and the prohibitions? The sunnahs, right? When we say sunnahs, we mean that which is mustahab, that which is encouraged to do, and you get rewarded for doing it, but you don't get sins if you don't do it. And of course, the opposite of sunnah is makruh, discouraged or disliked. What about after this? You all didn't take usul, so I understand that. Next comes what's called the nawafil, the extra good deeds. So a sunnah is something that the Prophet, he himself frequently did, like consistently did, right? But wasn't an obligation. Whereas an extra good deed is not the same, right? It's not to that level. And then finally, that which is permissible. Everything else. So to give you a practical example, if you live in a society, you are now, a sheikh or a sheikha, and you have been tasked with leading a community. The community has entrusted you with guiding them or leading them in terms of their iman. And so you're observing this community, and you see that the community, the percentage of people who actually pray their 5 daily prayers is around 50%, right? But the percentage of men who actually have beards is like 2%. So what are you going to start on? What's more important here? Prayers, right? Why?
Their obligation.
That is an obligation. It's a pillar.
Yeah.
Whereas growing the beard, some scholars say sunnah, some scholars say obligatory, right? The idea is what? They're not the same. So when you hear some buffoon who gets mad at the khatib because they're talking about salah, there are bigger things going on in the world. No, there aren't bigger things going on in the world than salah, right? Not to say we don't address those things and we only say salah and zakah and all that. No, that's not what I'm saying. But you'll find a lot of young ones who are religiously enthusiastic, but have not studied. They don't have mentorship. They will make certain things incredibly important, despite them being kind of secondary in Islam. And they will ignore primary issues in Islam, right? Because they think something else is more important. And so what essentially happens in their mind is this: their triangles is flipped upside down. It's distorted, it's messed up. Now, in terms of engineering, what's going to happen to the structure right here on the right? It's going to fall. And when it falls, it's going to crash. And it's going to cause a lot of damage. So the whole ISIS phase, I don't know how old you all were when it was going on, right? When you listen to them, how they understand Islam, it is completely distorted. It's like this upside down triangle. They view the restoration of the Khilafah as being the primary concern. And so they created this inverted triangle, right? And when it fell hard on them and on the people around them. And so when Marx made his infamous statement that religion is the opium of societies, basically societies become high, or their minds are distorted as a result of religion, right? He was wrong to say that. What he should have said is distorted religions are the opium of societies, not religion. When somebody misunderstands religion, when somebody misappropriates religion, misuses the religion, that's a big problem, huge problem, right? So it's good to have an idea of what's more important in the Quran, so that when we actually approach the Quran, we have more clarity, right? Now, in general, how we determine what is more important isn't simply because we've given these technical terminologies to certain things and we're just kind of putting it in order here like a puzzle, but rather when the scholar said this is a pillar of Islam, the Quran didn't come and say this is a pillar of Islam, right? But when the scholars read through the Quran and analyzed the Quran, they noticed that there were certain things that's constantly being mentioned. Tawheed, worship Allah, is constantly being mentioned. And not only that, the strength of the wording used is more than other things. Also, the consequences. When you worship Allah, what's your reward? Paradise. If you don't worship Allah, what's your punishment? Hellfire. Is there any more severe punishment than hellfire? Is there any bigger reward than paradise? So what's bigger than this? There is no hadith or verse that says, if you don't grow your beard, you're going to hellfire, right? And that's for a reason. It's because it's not that level. Okay, so pay attention to, when you look at verses, pay attention to how often this concept is being repeated throughout the Quran. What kind of consequences are coming with this practice or this belief? Okay, any questions on that? Okay, the next question is, what is the goal of the Quran? What is the Quran trying to do for you? When Allah sent the Quran, He sent it to do what for you? In other words, somebody who is properly impacted, influenced by the Quran, what is the product of that? Does that make sense? Right? Somebody who's went through the training of the Quran, how are they going to end up? What do you all think? In a state of submission, okay.
Wise.
What is it?
Wise.
Wiser, okay.
In the sense of knowing how to, live practically, morally, virtuously.
Okay, so it's going to give you that guidance that we were talking about. It's going to teach you how to interact with the world around you.
You're going to be humbled.
What is it?
You're going to be humbled.
Humbled, okay. We're all thinking small.
Become powerful.
Sure.
A little bigger.
Strong in Iman.
What do you say, Maryam? You're muted. And
Strong Iman.
strong Iman. Okay, what does strong Iman look like? If you see two people praying 5 times a day, you see all these people praying 5 times a day. You see all these people in Jummah. You think they all have strong iman? You think somebody, because they have a beard and mashallah, long thobe, they're walking around saying they're miswak here, they have strong iman? Right? How do I know this person has strong iman?
They will walk through life without anxiety of what is to come because they'll have faith in Allah.
My hippies live life that way.
They do.
Right? They're walking around their buggies. You have no idea how they finance their lives. Right? But they're living, that's okay, man.
Character.
They're what?
It's character.
They have character. Well, there are atheists who have good character.
I would say the way they live.
They implement.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Anna?
The way that they handle trials and tribulations that they have in their lives.
Okay.
So they don't. Having strong iman doesn't mean that you can't be sad or have fear or have anxiety. It's more so what you do through that fear and anxiety.
Okay, so based on that, Donald Trump, I think, would be top iman. Because how this guy keeps enduring what he's enduring is unbelievable. Allah, he puts us to shame. Right? The guy's
I was gonna say.
I mean that in a good way, by the way. I always just find it ironic how this guy is like the world, so many people are just pushing back against him and he keeps going. Right? And for what? You know, in the end, anyway. Okay. Someone else was saying something?
Yeah, they implement like fear of Allah in everything they do.
Okay, implement fear of Allah in everything they do. No doubt all of what you said are products, fruits of the Quran, right? But I want us to really simplify all of that in a way that makes it more imaginable in our minds, especially in light of our contemporary context, all right? So there's no one way of presenting this. I just want to be very clear here. There's no one way of presenting it. What I'm saying is not like the end-all be-all is what the scholars agreed on. This is the way I have come based on my understanding of the companions, how they ended up, what the Quran is saying, and in light of the language that we use today. And I think for our context today, the best summary of the result of the Quran in a person's life goes back to a companion when he had a conversation with the general of Persia. And in that conversation, the general asked this companion, why are you here? Right? Why are you here? What brought you here? And his answer was, جِئْنَا لِنُخْرِجَ النَّاسِ مِنْ عِبَادَةِ النَّاسِ إِلَى عِبَادَةِ رَبِّ النَّاسِ. We came to free the people from worshiping the creation to worshiping the Lord of the creation, right? And I'm using this word intentionally. We came to free the people from worshiping the people, from worshiping the creation to worshiping the creator, right? So the Quran, the product of the Quran, how do I know that the Quran is really impacting me? It is when I am freed from any and all influences other than Allah. When what is influencing me is primarily Allah, that is when the Quran has really set root in my heart. Because when we say only fear Allah, what does it really mean to only fear Allah? It means we shiver in our boots when we think of Allah. Is that really what Allah wants us? You think Allah created us so that we're just scared of Him? What is that nonsense? That's not what it is. But when we fear Allah, as a result, we don't fear anything else. Because the fear of Allah is all-encompassing. You fear Allah in that He can harm you, but nobody else can. You fear in losing your relationship with Allah, making every other relationship really secondary. You fear that Allah won't provide you, although He says He will. So you no longer fear somebody else cutting off your provisions. The more you fear Allah, the less you fear everything else. Is that confinement or is that freedom?
Freedom.
That's freedom right there. Same thing with hope. The more you have hope in Allah, the less you need to have hope in anything else. That's freedom right there. You're no longer shackled by other components. So in Islam is about freedom, right? But there's a slight change in preposition between the Western concept of freedom and the Islamic concept of freedom. In the West, freedom means what?
Freedom of enough to desires.
Okay.
Freedom to act.
Freedom to do, right? That's in the West. Free to do. Whereas in Islam, it is free from. This is the difference. Now, if you're free to do things, does it mean you're free? What are the things you do actually shackle you, confine you? Take, for example, you're free to drink alcohol. Okay, what if you become a substance abuser? What if you become addicted? Are you free? No. You know, on my way here, I remembered I forgot my coffee. And I'm starting to panic. What am I going to do? I don't have my coffee. Right? And it's kind of like, man, it's a shame on me that I'm developing an amount of, no minimal, but an amount of anxiety because I forgot my coffee. Attachment right there. What about your phones, you know? Everywhere you go, where's my phone? You're always conscious, my phone next to me. You put your hand and. Now, there's nothing haram about this. Let me just be very clear. It doesn't mean you have bad iman or weak iman if you fall into this. But the idea is the human attachment is what dictates our actions. Right? And so if you're free from things, then essentially you're free to act in accordance to you. But if you're free to do things and doing those things make you dependent on other things, then you're not free. Right? So the end product of being influenced by the Quran is being free. Free from. Right? And here's one more example. If you had the following two choices, what would you make? Or if you were offered the following, would you take it? Somebody offers you $10 billion in exchange for your vision. And no, you can't use part of that money to restore your vision. $10 billion in exchange for your vision. Would you do it? Can't you do anything and everything with 10 billion? You could with 10 billion. What?
Can't see what it's 10 billion.
Right?
Can't see your yacht.
So the vast majority of people say, no, I wouldn't take it. Why? Because we're wired in a way where protecting ourselves takes precedence over giving ourselves. And this is where the Quran really channels human reality. He understands this. Harm takes precedence in our mind than benefit. Right? It comes first. Are all the harms away? Okay, let's go and benefit ourselves. Right? So the goal of the Quran is to free the individual by removing any and all influences besides Allah. And that's what it is. Okay. Now, shifting gears just a little bit here. We're still in the chapter about the subject matter. The Quran, while it is a book for all of humanity, right? And it's written in a way where any person living in any time, in any place, will be able to engage the Quran in depth. The Quran is equally relevant to us today as it was to the companions. At the same time, the Quran is also initially talking to the companions. It's talking to these people. And what I mean by this is the following. To have a much richer understanding of the Quran, it goes a long way to understand the society it was sent to, right? Not because it was more relevant to them than it is to us, but when you understand how the Quran, or when you understand the society at play, what is meaningful to them, what was irrelevant to them, what was sensitive to them, what was, elements that they would, elements of pride for them, elements of shame, you better understand how the Quran is speaking so that I can then translate that to something similar in our times today. Does that make sense? So understanding the society it was sent to helps us better understand why Allah is saying what He's saying and what is meant from the what is meant to be the outcome of what is said. So some basic things about this Arabian society. For one, they believed in Allah. There's a common misconception that these people didn't believe in Allah. It's not true. The Quran is clear that they believed in Him. وَلَئِنْ سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ what? لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهِ. If you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they're going to say who? Allah. All right? So they believed in Allah. They believed that He was the creator. They believed that He was the supreme being, right? And they believed in what we know to be many of His names. They believed that He was Ar-Rabb, He was Al-Khaliq, He was Al-Qawi, right? However, they were a meaning multiple, polytheistic society, meaning they worshiped more than one God, right? They worshiped more than one God. They worshiped Allah, but they worshiped other than Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And why they worshiped other than Allah is because basically they use these deities as a means to Allah, right? They would say things like, I'm not worthy enough to speak directly to Allah. So we talk to these deities who Allah is in control of. We worship them so that they can go to Allah on our behalf. They're pure, right? And another reason they worship is because they perceive some benefit or harm from them. They think that if they sacrifice on behalf of Allah, that Allah will benefit them in one way or another. Right? Now, historically, how did this all come about? Arabia, or at least Mecca, did not exist before Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim is the one who established Mecca with his son, Ismail. Ibrahim went back to Jerusalem. Ismail stayed in Mecca with his mother, Hajar. And so Ibrahim is the father of Arabia, right? He's the father of Arabia. And so the Arabs would call him Abuna, our father. They all went back to Ibrahim alayhi salam. All of them, all these different tribes went back to Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now, obviously, as a prophet, and his son Ismail is a prophet, when they built the city, and now you have these people coming and moving in and establishing themselves there, what did Ismail do? He taught them Tawheed, right? He taught them how to worship Allah. He taught them Allah. And Ibrahim is the one who established Hajj, right? وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا وَعَلَى كُلِّ ضَامِرٍ. Allah told Ibrahim, go and perform Hajj. People will come, teach them what to do tawaf, do the sa'i, right? All of these rituals. And so fast forward to the time of the Prophet ﷺ, Hajj was continuing. Hajj was performed every single year since the time of Ibrahim ﷺ, right? Now, over time, with the introduction of shirk, they introduced shirk practices within Hajj, right? So when you study the seerah, especially in the early Meccan era, the Quraysh was doing Hajj. Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl, they were doing Hajj. And they were doing the things that we do today. They were doing tawaf, and they were doing the sa'i, and doing other things, right? So some ill-informed individuals today, they sit there and they look, oh, the Muslims just kind of did the same things the mushrikeen were doing, and it's made it Islamic. That's not what happened. Ibrahim is the one who established these. Yeah, these Arabs were doing salah. I don't know if you've heard this one. Yeah, I mean, when the Prophet came, they were doing the salah, and then the Prophet just kind of continued it. It's actually the origin is polytheistic. No, the origin is Abrahamic. It's Ibrahim who introduced this. Right? So much of the Quran is referencing who? Ibrahim. Ibrahim. Your father Ibrahim. This is what Ibrahim was doing. Ibrahim was a muwahhid. He was a person of tawheed. Why is Allah constantly taking back to Ibrahim? Because they understood him. They related to him, right? It's kind of like a call back. Hey, you went away from the way of Ibrahim, come back, right? So Mecca is established as a city that is monotheistic and a city that practices monotheistic rituals, including Hajj. How was shirk introduced to the society? I'll tell you after the question.
So you're saying that when this was being revealed to the people in Mecca, whenever they heard Ibrahim, they were familiar, like some of them already knew, like, okay, we heard stories about Abraham before.
Not just stories, I mean, their lineage went back to him.
Okay, and that was what
Ibrahim was as real in their minds as the person next to them.
Okay.
Right? So how is shirk introduced into the society? Well, we know that they had seasonal trade routes, right? In the summer, they'd go up to Damascus. In the winter, they'd go down to Yemen. So twice a year, they're doing these seasonal caravans for the purpose of trade and business. So once they were up in Damascus, and Damascus at that time was under the Roman Empire, the polytheistic Roman Empire. Christianity still hadn't set in. And a man by the name of Amr ibn Luhay, he was there in Damascus, and he saw somebody selling these statues. Now, Amr has never seen statues before. So he asked the vendor, what are these? So, yeah, these are our gods, right? Hearing things is not the same as experiencing seeing it, right? Talking about these stories is like, oh yeah, okay, I can imagine it. I want you all to go to one of these Indian grocery stores, these Hindu grocery stores, where they sell their gods. Have you seen this? One time I entered one, and right to the left, as soon as you enter, right to the left, they have a bunch of these idols. And they were on sale. 50% off. And like when you see it, it's a whole different experience when you hear it. Right? So if you have the opportunity to go and watch them perform shirk, go and watch them. Because it brings to life what the Quran is talking about. Oh my God, what on earth are you doing? Do you not realize what you're doing? Prophet would see this all day. Anyway, so Amr, he's like, yeah, what are these statues? Like, yeah, these are our gods. We worship them. Yeah, this one brings rain, this one brings love, and this one brings children, and this one, gets you married, and so Hamza's like, man, that's fantastic. We could use two of these. Give me the one that brings rain and give me the one that brings money. And the Prophet says he is the one who introduced shirk. And lo and behold, it went from 2 statues to 360 statues around the Kaaba. 360. Day in, day out. And the Prophet would pray next to these things. Right? Because he would pray by the Kaaba. And it's full of statues. So all those ones, we need to leave Hijrah, we need a better environment. We got to go to Turkey and Qatar, and the Prophet used to pray next to the Kaaba full of statues. Right? So don't let it weigh too much on your heart. So this is how shirk is introduced into that society, and the centuries pass, and the Prophet comes والسلام, to society full of shirk. Now, obviously, tribalism. This is a tribalistic society. What does tribalism mean? Right? Today we call them gangs. Now, tribes aren't as violent and as reckless as gangs, but when it comes to the mentality, it's a gang mentality. Right? Essentially, tribalism is a social construct that deems your fellow tribesman or woman as someone who you must protect and honor at all costs, even if your fellow tribesman is at fault. You protect them simply because they're one of yours, right? And so if your tribesman goes and murders 5 people for no reason, you still have to protect them, even against the ones who are trying to get justice. This is a tribal mentality. And it was extremely strong. All right, so it's a tribalistic society. And the Quran is trying to erode this because it's unhealthy. It doesn't completely overhaul it, but it reduces it. It makes it a tertiary part of your experience. Just like in our times today, American Muslims have been working to take this idea that I'm Palestinian, or I'm Syrian, or I'm Pakistani, or I'm whatever, from something important to something secondary, right? It's not that it's wrong to identify with your heritage. Something wrong with that. There's actually, it's part of the human experience. But for it to be a primary way of identifying yourself, that's unhealthy, right? It's unhealthy and quite honestly meaningless. Because what's now called Palestine, or I shouldn't say Palestine, it's too sensitive now. What's now called Pakistan, tomorrow will be called something else. Yesterday was called something else, right? So tribalism was there. When it comes to women, unfortunately, our Muslim community exaggerates kind of the status of women in the time of the Prophet, or at least when the Prophet ﷺ came. They weren't as oppressed as it's made to seem. Were there elements of mistreatment? Yes. And the Quran addresses this. However, was it to the extent that these women were all slaves and had no voice? Absolutely not. That's not true at all. Again, someone of your tribe is of your tribe. They are yours, even if they are a woman. And so the men would behave in the same tribalistic ways with their women as they do with their fellow man, right? And this is clear in the stories, which I don't have time to get into all of them. What else about there? Yeah, so what's up?
Weren't they also extremely honest in their dealings with like they keep their word and actually?
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was talking about. Right? There were certain characteristics that they highlighted and emphasized tremendously, like honesty. You don't lie. And so even though they would defend their tribesmen who's at fault, they wouldn't lie about the fact that they're at fault. They say, look, man, this is how it is. We're protecting this guy, right? Generosity, sacrifice, forbearance. A lot of the characteristics that are mentioned and referred to in the Quran, right? These were important to their society. The question is why? Where did that come from? Some cultures, they get all defensive. It's like, oh, we have good character too. It's not about that. It's not saying that Arabs are the best in character and nobody else can have good character. Nobody else can be at that level. There's a reason why they emphasized character. And that is because in this environment that they were living in, it was extremely harsh, very scarce in resources. And so they needed leaders who had these characteristics because their survival depended on those characteristics, right? So when they would elect the chiefsman of the tribe, they would elect a person not based on who their father was. This is not true. They would elect somebody based on who had these characteristics because their survival depended on that. They depended on their chief being generous with the resources under his control, forbearing with the mistakes and the shortcomings of his tribesmen. Because if you lose a member, you're talking about you lost like 5% of your population if one person goes, right? So they needed people like that. Now, they would boast about these things, and it's in their poetry. Courage, we are people courage, and this and that. They would boast about it. So it didn't come from this good heart side. It came from this how we survive side. So the Quran comes and it takes those and says, okay, let's transfer this here. The survival stuff goes to Allah. You depend on Allah, not on your fellow tribesmen. This character stuff is important because it's part of being a good believer. Right? Now, what's extremely important to understand in our context today, the Western world, I think this would be a fun project. I don't know if any time in human history, a society has pitted men and women against each other. I don't know. And this is coming from the Western philosophies, and I'm sure other, forces in the background. One of the reasons why you see this discrepancy, this tension between men and women, and this question of masculinity and femininity, is because when you look at American history, how was masculinity defined? What is masculine according to the Western mindset? Just what is a stereotypical image? Going to war? Okay.
Having multiple women, like living out of.
Okay, promiscuity. What else? Dominance, right? It's the 80s that defined masculinity for the following decades. Who are the superstars of the 80s? Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Van Damme, these macho men who in movies are unbelievably bulk and unbelievably emotionless. Rambo, right? This is what it means to be masculine in the mind of the Western world. What does it mean to be feminine in the mind of the Western world? Who are the icons of femininity? Marilyn Monroe. A lot of the young ones are looking like, who's that? Don't look her up.
She's today's Kim Kardashian.
Right? Who's going to know? Mashallah, mashallah, taqwa. The fact that you could say her name properly says that you know her. You come across. So femininity was defined as, a certain thing. Whereas in Islam, give me some of the virtuous characteristics that Muslims should have. Tell me some of them. Honesty. What else? Modesty. What else? Generosity. Humility. Come on.
Discipline.
What else? Patience. Come on. Steadfastness. Huh? Cleanliness. All right. 2 more. You get 10.
Generosity.
We said generosity. Okay.
Merciful.
Mercy.
Merciful. All right. 1 more. We said patience. Strength. Of these 10, is 1 more relevant to men than women according to the Islamic paradigm? In other words, these 10 that we just randomly blurted out, a woman is meant to equally manifest these characteristics as a man is. Right? Now, some will come more naturally to a woman than to a man, and vice versa. And I'm not saying that there is no such thing as masculinity and femininity in Islam, but where the Western world screwed up bad is to differentiate these characteristics, to say that women are softer than men, women are more emotional than men are whatever. Right? Says who? Did the Prophet used to cry?
Yeah.
Well, there are many. But when did he used to cry? You see what I mean? He used to cry hearing the Quran. That doesn't take away from his manliness. The Prophet ﷺ used to love to play with kids. Some of these macho men, what are you wasting your time with these kids? Right? That's not a feminine only trait. Nor do we say that this is a feminine trait that men should adopt. No, it's a human trait. So the Western world, when it comes to character, screwed up bad, right? And this whole concept of masculine and femininity, according to the West, is it sucks. It's terrible, right? I mean, some people gone to the extent to say that Allah has masculine side and a feminine side, masculine names and feminine names. Right? Utter insanity, utter stupidity.
Muslims have said this?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't call them a Muslim. They identify as Muslim, but they ain't no Muslim, right?
Is that different than talking about, I don't know if it's called Yawami or something like that? How do you say the names? I've heard it before that they call it in Arabic, that some names are feminine and masculine. I've heard it by Muslims. One's called like beautiful or Jamil or something.
Oh, Jamal and Jalal.
Is that different than what you're talking about?
So Jamal is beauty. It's not feminine.
Mhm.
It's in our mind, we think that beauty is something that's feminine, and so they tie it back to Allah. No. Inna Allah jameel yuhibbul jamal. Allah is beautiful, He loves beautification. So a man is meant to be beautiful, but how a man beautifies himself is obviously different than how a woman beautifies herself. What about a man is beautiful is different than what about a woman is beautiful, but the idea is beauty is part of the experience of a Muslim. We beautify things. When we go somewhere, it is part of our character to leave it more beautiful than when we first entered, right? Okay. So that's kind of the gist of Arabian society. And so the Quran comes and is initially talking to them, right? In a way that is actually relevant to our times today. All right. So with that, on page 22, the first section or the first subject matter that Sheikh Farhan presents is beliefs. Right? Obviously, you have the belief of Tawheed, the belief of the prophets and the messengers, and whatnot. So you have the belief in Tawheed, in the Day of Judgment, in I didn't share the screen with you all. Why didn't you say anything? Did I? No. Anyway, Day of Judgment. You have the belief in the angels. You have belief in prophets. You have belief in the books. And of course, belief in Qadar. All right. Now, these 5, when properly understood, amplify this. This is what we were talking about earlier. The Day of Judgment is a big day because we return to Allah, right? And He is going to hold us accountable. That amplifies Allah's presence in our mind. The angels. All right, let's skip the angels for now. The prophets. The prophets were sent to do what exactly? Right? To call people to Allah. Submit only to Allah. Worship only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The books is Allah speaking to humanity. Obviously highlighting Tawheed. Worship Allah. How to worship Allah. Qadar, complex topic, but I'll summarize it as follows. Qadar is, again, freeing yourself from the powers of the world so that you are only dependent on the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By believing that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows things to happen on this earth, makes me more dependent on Him, less dependent on everyone else, right? The angels, part of why the angels are a pillar of the faith is because it's a manifestation of Allah's mercy. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran and in the Prophet says in Hadith that there's an angel in front of you, an angel behind you protecting you. There's an angel to your right and to your left documenting. When you make dua for someone else, there's an angel there saying Ameen for you too. When you do salah, after you do salah and you're sitting there, there's an angel making dua for you. The angels that are holding up the throne are making dua for you. What does that say about Allah? He created these beings, these angelic beings who in our minds are very, very interesting, very beautiful, very, important. And Allah created them literally for us. It's like, hey, I'm going to help you win. Here are the angels. We go help them win. Okay. That's just showing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, our place with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His mercy in our lives. So all of these beliefs are really amplifying our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The more we properly absorb them, the more we understand them, then naturally the more we feel comfortable submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and feel empowered when we submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these beliefs are coming in. And again, talking to an Arabian society, I forgot to mention that. That's important. Number 6, along with the problem of shirk, the Arabs disbelieved in an afterlife. They rejected the afterlife, right? And when you don't believe in an afterlife, what's the point of worshiping God? What's the point? If you don't believe you're going to go back and be accountable for what you did, then it's about, can I get away with it? Like, honestly, when you think of some of these scandals that come about and these really bizarre, like Diddy and whatnot, in his mind, if I can get away with it, why not? Honestly, if you can get away with stealing $1 million, why not? Like, you can't rationalize not doing it. You see what I mean? Like, if you know 100%, I'm going to get away with this. Can you make a rational argument as to why you shouldn't take it? No. You really can't. I mean, it's hard to, right? So they rejected the afterlife. So these are the beliefs. When it comes to the next section, the commandments. Right. This is the halal, haram, do, don't do, the commandments. How important are the commandments in the Muslim experience? In other words, how important is fiqh?
Very,
Why?
because it literally tells us what to do and how to do it. I contemplate on this a lot because the other religions, they don't have it. The Christians, they don't have faith. Like, they literally do whatever they want, however they want, whatever they want, because they don't have a thing that tells them what to do and how to do it.
Okay. Right.
to further touch on that, it gives you a real way to know what God wants from you and how to connect him with him in my sincerity, in a way that's actually going to be accepted, in the way that he wants to be loved. Like he was saying that other religions, they just go off of whatever they think God wants or they assume God wants, but we have like a clear understanding of exactly what God wants, and then we can choose to do so.
Okay, ladies.
What to do, when to do it.
That's what it teaches us. So how important is it?
I think also too, I think it's
Hold on. There's someone saying them.
I'm sorry.
What's teaching you how to do it like you.
Okay. Go ahead, Joseph.
Sorry about that. I think just simply it's just as important it is to have good intentions. I think we also have to have the correct actions together with good intentions. And I think that in itself kind of provides like the essence of Islam. It's really focusing on having good intentions, but knowing exactly what to do, and what and how Allah accepts us, right? With the actions that we do.
So how important is it? Look,
Extremely important.
extremely important. Okay. So when you have mashallah, the young man, sometimes not so young man, walking around and their thobe is half up here. Have you seen this? Yeah. This is the sunnah up here. Of course, they don't have any pants under, so their hairy legs are sticking out, and their beard is like this, and they're walking around. Seen this before? And they're policing everyone. Haram. 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 Well, there's the sunnah. You didn't fulfill the sunnah. And then. Right?
Mhm.
Is what we're talking about when we say commandments?
No, he
He's-
doesn't have an understanding of the command,
Why not?
because his pyramid is opposite of ISIS.
Oh, come on, man. Is he doing anything wrong here? I mean, the Prophet did say, your thobe, let it be between above your ankles and halfway in your foreleg. Talk about the beard. He's saying, man, brother, you have to grow the beard. He's telling you something wrong. That's true. Well, he's interacting with what he's seeing in the moment.
But he likes etiquette.
That's what?
It's not the most important thing. Tawheed is the most.
We understand that. I didn't ask, is it the most? Like I said, how important is it? Joseph, go ahead.
I just said that it's there's just a lack of etiquette in that regard. It doesn't take away from what he's saying necessarily. It's just the etiquette.
Okay, there's a lack of etiquette there. What he's doing is not a question of the importance of commandments. It's etiquette. Okay, that's a good analysis there. So the reason why I bring this up is for the following. There is no shortage of examples of people who apply all the commandments, yet end up falling into haram when haram is presented to them. Let me repeat that. There's no shortage of examples of people who pray their 5 daily prayers, who have a beard, and they're very enthusiastic about it. But as soon as a test comes to them, they fail miserably. Okay, so what? The so what is, there seems to be a contradiction. This person's behaving with taqwa, but it seems like they don't have taqwa. It's like there's a difference between, it was a struggle and I didn't make it through, versus just collapsing off the bat. Again, there's no shortage of examples of this. Or what about the person with all the knowledge and? I mean, there's a hadith that literally says that there will be people who are seen as scholars in this world. They spent their life educating the community about the halal and haram, and they know all the debates and the discussions and all the details. They'll give you the dalil and everything, and you find them in hellfire. Why? Because I told you not to do it, and I would do it. And I told you do these things, and I wouldn't do it. Society saw them as icons of taqwa. They had none. The question is why? What happened? Right? Or to put it differently, does applying the commandments automatically translate into the development of taqwa? Right? Now, does it play a role in developing taqwa? Obviously. But is it the only thing that develops taqwa? Only thing needed to develop taqwa? The answer is no. And this is where people make a big mistake, right? If your consciousness of Allah is not developed, then that's where the failure comes in. And performing the commandments doesn't necessarily develop that consciousness of Allah. It's other things that does. So how do we understand the role of commandments in our lives? Now, any one of these discussions requires a much longer discussion, right? So I'm trying to give you the gist, the summary of it. The commandments, the way I like to imagine it, it is the red line. It's not red, but this is the red line. Fiqh teaches you what you can and can't do. What are the boundaries? Right? What are the boundaries? And we live in a world today where people don't know what the boundaries are. Right? Fiqh teaches you what the boundaries are. Stay within it, you're going to be good. And the more you understand this, the more this is clear to you, the more you know how to make better decisions in this life. The more you know how to make better decisions in this life. All right? And the shaitan, he gets people, especially more practicing people, he gets them into the haram in areas of this red line that are a little bit blurred in the person's mind or incomplete. Right? So, for example, shaitan will come to someone, a practicing Muslim, and say, that poor lady, I'm not pointing at anyone, I'm just pointing, sorry. That poor lady, go help her. Go to her home and help her. She needs help. Now this practice, oh my God, help, and the rahmah starts coming out. Fiqh comes in and says, hold on. The Prophet said you can't be alone with another woman. This isn't rahmah. This is deception, right? And if she really needs help, the scenario could be real, by the way. She could really need help. Okay, let me go find a lady who can go and help her, right? That's fiqh coming in. This is incredibly important. So it creates the red lines, the boundaries. Stay in here, do these things, you're going to be good. Now, the next level of iman, fiqh isn't what's going to build that level of iman. It is other elements of the faith, like improving your aqidah or improving tazkiyah or other things. But in general, fulfilling all the commandments in convenient times doesn't bear much fruit. Right? It doesn't bear much fruit. The companions, their level of iman, I don't think has much to do with the fulfillment of commandments. It has partially to do with it, right? But people look at the companions and say the companions would rush to salah. And so they'll start imitating that. I'm rushing to salah because that means I have taqwa. No. There was something inside that made them rush to salah. That's very different than they rush to salah and I want to copy that because I want to be like them. Now I'm just copying. That's not coming from the heart. That's coming from the mind. And there's nothing wrong about that. It's very clear. But there's a difference between what is motivating you is coming from the heart, the iman inside pushing you, versus I saw that model, I'm going to replicate it and then fool myself into believing I'm at the same level of iman. Right? So the next level, it starts the dynamics begin to change. But in general, if you want strong iman, then it is only Allah who can give that to you. Iman is from Allah. Strength of Iman is from Allah, right? And if Allah wants to give it to you, He gives it to you by putting you through scenarios in life that will force you to develop aspects of your Iman that you normally wouldn't develop when you're living your day-to-day life. Do you need tawakkul on Allah coming to IOK? Honestly. Yeah, we leave the house and say, Bismillah tawakkaltu ala Allah, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. But honestly, do you sit there thinking, man, I hope I get there? You don't think that. Because you know you're getting there, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. You know you're getting there. You have a car, you have GPS, you have the route, everything is in order. Why do you need to depend on Allah if that's the case? So if your life is just commuting from work to home, work to home, work to home, you're not in an environment that's conducive to building tawakkul. You're not. Let's say you're in business. Is there any guarantees in business? No. How many things can go wrong? A lot. Everything. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong, right? So now, if you're in business, do you need tawakkul? Oh, you do. If you're in business, is honesty easy? Nope. So when somebody's honest in business, that means something. In business, are your desires really at the forefront? I want more money. Yeah. Right? So it's this life. It's life that trains you. Allah puts you through life. That's what trains you to develop your tawakkul, your consciousness of Allah, your fear of Allah, and. It is also in moments where you need to take a stand. And you do take a stand. Allah rewards you with increased Iman. And you find this in the Quran, right? Like Hudaybiyah. When they took a stand that hurt them, Allah said, لِيَزْدَادُوا إِيمَانًا مَعَ إِيمَانِهِمْ. Allah made that scenario so that they increase in Iman. All right? So fiqh plays a role. Please don't misunderstand me. Don't go around saying Shaykh says fiqh is not important. Fiqh is incredibly important. It's the foundation of your taqwa. It's the foundation of your Iman. Right? But understand its function. Its function is to make clear the red lines. What you can do, what you can't do. Because clearly somebody who's doing the haram and not doing the obligations, do they have any level of taqwa? None, right? But beyond this, where do you start developing the taqwa? It's in these realms of tazkiyah, this dependence on Allah, patience, and which it's life that is going to put you through those challenges that will give you the opportunity to develop it. Fiqh just keeps you within the borders, within the permissible, while you try and reach that, right? So when you see somebody constantly in the masjid, don't assume that they're a person of great taqwa, right? When you go, especially when you get married, right? I want a man of deen. I want a sister who's going to complete the other half of my religion. You know, I have met devils who wear niqab and devils who wear beards. Right? So taqwa, iman is more than just fulfilling the commandments. There's the akhlaq side, character. Are they of good character? Right? You're not marrying somebody, their salah isn't going to benefit you. Their salah isn't going to make your life better, but their akhlaq will, right? And of course, living life. Those are the commandments. Now you have stories. Stories. About a third of the Quran is stories. Now, the vast majority of these stories are about prophets calling their people to Tawheed. Okay? Now, why? Like, one story is enough, right? For us Muslims today, man, I would much rather have a story of how a prophet had to deal with a duopoly political system. I'd rather have a story of a prophet who had to vote between, as one person put it, Shaitan and Dajjal. Right? That would be really good. But I only got these stories of Nuh and Hud and Saleh and Shu'aib. That's pretty much the same thing. Right? So how do I today, in the year 2024, really channel into these stories in a way that helps me navigate my life, my context? My life isn't just me going out and calling people to La ilaha illallah. In fact, Muslims aren't really doing it that much here in America. Right? So what do we do? Now, there are 5 stories that are constantly repeated in the Quran. What are those 5 stories? Nuh. Huh?
Are you going in order?
Well, Musa is repeated, but these 5 tend to come as a package. Was it Hud? You have Ad. So let's just say the prophets: Hud, Saleh, Shu'aib, and Lut. Why are these 5 prophets constantly mentioned? They weren't the only peoples who were punished. وَكَمْ أَهْلَكْنَا مِنَ الْقُرُونِ مِنْ بَعْدِ نُوحٍ. How many societies do we punish after Noah? Do you think it was just these 5? Why these 5?
Were there people especially resistant to the message?
No, I don't think so. Definitely there were a lot of lessons, but I don't see how other similar stories are going to be void of those lessons.
Is it because that they're Arab and so they relate more to the Arab society?
Close. Lut wasn't an Arab. I don't think Nuh, we can't say Nuh was either. This is Mecca. This is Ad. This is Thamud. Lut is up here. And Nuh is somewhere, I'm guessing, in the Levant area. When they would go south for travel, they'd pass through Ad. When they'd go north, they'd pass through Thamud and Lut. وَإِنَّكُمْ لَتَمُرُّونَ عَلَيْهِمْ مُصْبِحِينَ وَبِاللَّيْلِ. Shu'aib was here. Right? In other words, they passed by these areas constantly. They knew the stories. They knew that there was this man named Saleh who called his people to this thing called La ilaha illallah, and his people rejected, and then they were punished with some sort of national phenomenon. They knew these stories. So when the Quran came and gave them these stories, they already knew the characters. They had a general idea of the stories. So Allah used stories that they already agreed with, they already knew, in order to get the message across. Now, in the year 2024, what do we take from this?
Use stories that people are familiar with?
Yeah, right. Try and find the overlap. Because if they're talking about some, Bartholomew of Rome who went to his people and started giving da'wah, they can't even say his name. How do I know this Bartholomew guy really existed? I mean, that's the first question, right? But they can't do that with these stories. So the idea here isn't that necessarily all 5 of these prophets have some unique history to offer us, unique lessons, but that they were already accepted by the people the prophet was calling to be stories where this stuff happened. So now that what the Quran is telling them is you already believe this. You know the formula. And here you have a man calling to the same thing that these 5 men who you know called to. And you're behaving like the way their people behave. What do you think the end result of this is going to be? right? So in our times today, try and find that overlap. We don't have to make everything about قال الله قال Rasul. If they don't believe in the Prophet والسلام, they're not obviously not going to believe in the hadith, he said, right? But if I can find something that their philosophers said and use that now to prove my point, makes my job easier, right? So don't be afraid to do that. Now, for these 5 stories, there are unique aspects of them. Each one of these, the Quran highlights a particular social problem. For Nuh, it was a caste system, right? For Hud, it was the arrogance, political arrogance. For Saleh, it was lavishness and convenience in life. For Lut, the alphabet began. And for Shu'aib, it was economic corruption, right? And you might find overlap elements of each of these in the other ones, but this is what the Quran highlights. And how the Prophet addresses those issues gives us insight in terms of how we address it today. So for example, when it comes to the people of Thamud and their convenience, their luxury, and we were experiencing that today, right? Well, one of the things Saleh tells his people, أَتُتْرَكُونَ فِيمَا هَاهُنَا آمِنِينَ. And you think this is going to last? Do you think you're just always going to be this way? Now, if you're living a life of comfort and convenience, that you don't want to hear that. That really pushes a button. So when you come to Americans today and you tell them the empire is shrinking, don't tell us that. Which is true, by the way. The empire is shrinking, but the politics and the politicians, the Americans in general, they're refusing to accept it. They're still living life as though it's the 90s, right? It's America of the 90s. It's not. Do you think you're going to be here forever? You're going to die. Don't tell me that. I want to be comfortable. It's the most discomforting thing, right? Also, the whole story of the she-camel, it's constantly being brought up, especially, hey, let it drink its water. I mean, why does that have to be in the Quran? I mean, it seems like such secondary information. Don't harm it, let it drink. Give it a day to drink. Give it a day to drink. The Quran is constantly saying this about the story. Well, why? Well, maybe because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them the remedy to their luxury is sharing. Share with others. Because when you have luxury and you have a lot of riches, your mindset becomes selfish. You remedy that how? By creating a system of sharing. Share with other people. There's enough to go around. Right? And we see this today, right? Right. So the stories, here I'm giving you some elements. In general, when you approach a story of the Quran, your ability to make the most out of it depends on your ability to find parallels between the story and your current situation, whether at the individual level or what's going on in the world or your country or society or whatever, right? How do I make parallels? When you look at Yusuf alayhi salam, and his story, when he was in Egypt, he's a foreigner, living in a land that believes in different things, right? And he's given the opportunity to work at a political level. Are there parallels in terms of our times today, right? We start to ask these questions and we start to try and derive the lessons. Well, how did Yusuf alayhi salam behave in this situation, in that situation, right? So your ability to find the parallels between what happened in these stories and what's going on today is the extent to which you will benefit from these stories. Right? But in general, the gist of all of these stories is when you're with Allah, you have a happy ending. When you go against Allah, it's not good for you. Right? Yusuf alayhi salam was with Allah, look how it ended. Yaqub alayhi salam was with Allah, look how it ended. Fir'aun was against Allah, look how it ended. Qarun was against Allah, look how it ended. Right? So it gives you that beginning and the end. And any of us can use that formula in our own lives. Okay, I'll go ahead and stop here for today by the parables. Once again, I'll send you the link to the exam, your midterm, here in a few minutes. And it's a Google form, so it's all multiple choice. The last few questions, you can have multiple answers per question. So choose all that apply. If you study the book, you're fine. I'm not adding my kind of conversations with you all that's outside of the book into this. So, don't stress over that. But I tried to make it challenging, right? It's not going to be an easy cakewalk of, first grade level multiple choice exam. Read the questions properly, think about it. I do try and trick you, all right? I do try and confuse you. But if you studied enough, you should be perfectly fine, inshallah. Okay, any questions? No. No, I can't.
وعليكم السلام.
When did Gerard play last? I thought he played twice a week, but we didn't have him last week. Been a long time. And he was not your best. All right. Saying forward. I mean, I can take the class songs, take them. Yeah. Maybe I can. Who's it? That's what I'm doing. Is that a good thing? The other time we were here, additional tutoring was you know, my math and extra hours. Yeah, I would take time to learn it. Taking, taking.
Okay, well, what time? First of all?
AP English version.
Have you reading like novels?
Yeah, Rich Howard, I think people.
Hmm.
And I wrote about how book is an allegory to the biblical story.
Oh, is it that?
It is, yeah, but I mean, like, it was the only like unique choice that time. So,
What other books have you read in that month?
and especially
I read a few like not a big novel, I can read, but not novel. I haven't read them. Do you like novels?
not usually. It is like fiction, science fiction.
Are you going to drop off and I'm not just drop off? Cold in here, right? Yes, sir. Like this. It's like 10 degrees colder here too than it is in Nevada.
Yeah, Marina Valley, 10 degrees.
I don't know, like Eastville, Ontario, so it's yeah.
Oh, where you at? Yeah.
So it's like
Matt, did you go to this one?
Uh, I'm like one of those individuals who lives in an area but is rarely in that area. So I'm
Sheikh, I think you're muted.
Remember? It was under Mudolphin. They're like. Before the test, I was worried about something about that, but during the test, I was like, this, everything but the, Mudolphin. Well, not yeah, not Mudolphin, look, but the bottom portion, the bottom portion. The top might be, I went 12, I was good, the bottom.
What about the sentences of that? We go with the
I think so.
meet the
Like, one of the questions asked for Mike. Not with, yeah.
One of the questions asked for money.
I think so.
Really?
one of the sentence questions.
Maybe.
I don't think so.
It might have just been one word. Translate the word,
Mm-mm.
no?
In a sentence? We're about to see that, but I don't think so. I don't think so.
Oh, we're gonna go over it?
Yeah.
Let's practice. Awesome. I had my first Arabic dream. The night after the test, I was converting English to Arabic. What were you converting? Random sentences.
Did they make sense? Like, were they logically correct? Or did you see
Yeah, it
others
was just like,
saying stuff?
I was just converting like, like I remember the word was city. Or like, trying to see if it could be feminine, masculine.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ونستنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. It's funny you bring up dreams. You know, when they're clearly bad, when they are clearly bad dreams or evil dreams, let's say that. When they're clearly evil dreams, and obviously, you know, you don't mention them, but when they're like, when they're strange or they're not actually inherently evil, they're just strange. There's no problem in mentioning them. I haven't had it in a while. But I've had a handful of dreams. And I remember the first one I had in this genre or in this set was like a handful of years ago. I don't know, maybe like would have been 2014. So maybe like 5 years ago, I had this dream that basically like I had come back to America and I was like, teaching and doing whatever. But like there was one class in Medina that I hadn't finished. Like I basically did not graduate. So I needed to go back and take this one class. I needed to like put my entire life on pause and go and just take this one class, right? And that dream was so stressful because it was like my wife and kids are here, and like, what do I do? Do I take them with me? Do I let them stay? I need to go back for this one class. And I've basically finished everything, but it's like this one class I need to go back and take, right? And it was so perplexing and troubling that when I woke up, I honestly did not know if I read with it. No, I'm not even,
It wasn't like it happened in real life.
No. So like,
I'm sorry.
I got up, prayed Fajr, and frantically in the morning, I'm like going through the closet. My wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I need to find something. And I was looking for my certificate. And she was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm looking for something. Like, what? I was like, I'll tell you later. I need to find this right now. And I had a general idea where it was. And I remember like I looked at it. And when I looked at it, it brought like this great sense of relief over me. I was like, Alhamdulillah. Right? And I went through a few years where I would have this dream every like 6 months or 12 months. And it was so troubling. But alhamdulillah, after that first time that I looked at the thing, I would wake up and I was like, no, I looked at it, right? I had a similar dream that basically would come back everything. But for some reason, that like I never cleared out my apartment. Like my apartment was completely intact, all the clothes are there, everything's there. So I was like, I need to go back and take care of these things, right? And you have to understand that like in that part of the world, at least when I lived there, obviously it was a blessing to live in Medina, but sometimes doing the most simplest of tasks could like take a week, right? Or like you just needed like one paper with someone's signature on it, but like you needed to pray to Hajj to pray that guy showed up to work on the days that you needed the signature, right? I'm waking up, I'm like, dude, I have to clear out an apartment. I was like, what are you talking about? Yes, let's begin by looking at the quiz. All right, very quickly. Rama, knowledge, learning. علم علوم. Michelle, garden, paradise. Jannatun jannatun. Samira, angel, plural. Malaikatun. Were you saying something before? No. Malakun malaikatun. طيب, last. Akhirun, Isa, family or people. Ahlun ahluna. Sa'ad, hand. Yadun aiden. Abdurrahman, compassion, mercy. Rahmatun, Muhammad, wealth. Malun amwalun. Malun amwalun. Sa'ad, DJ, reward. Jaza'un. Yeah, I think Jaza'un, I would have taken it. But what did it want here technically? Because it wanted a singular and a plural. Ajrun ujurun. Ajrun ujurun. Salma, protector, ally.
Waliyun awliya'u.
Waliyun awliya'u. Muhammad Fardeen, king.
Malikun mulukun amlakun.
Yeah, malikun mulukun amlakun. Bayan, it's a stupid, dull-witted.
Sorry.
Siraj.
Balidun abaladu.
Balidun abladu. Amira, gentle, soft-hearted.
Halimun hulama'u.
Halimun hulama'u. Maryam Khidr, grass.
Ushbun.
Ushbun. Joseph, a water well. Rama, water well. Bi'run, Michelle, mountain. Jabalun, Jibalun, Samira, west or place of sunset. One is the name of a prayer. طيب.
17 or 18.
17, west.
Maghribun Magharibu.
Maghribun, Magharibu. Isa, east, place of sunrise. Mashriqun, Mashariqu. Grant, knife.
Sakakinu.
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 Sikinun, Sakakinu. Sa'ad, sleep or dream. Manamun, Manamatun. Abdurrahman, river. Nahrun, Anharun. DJ, human being. Basharun. City, country, town. Muhammad. Dini?
City, country, what? Or the other, okay,
That's village.
and the end.
Muhammad Fardeen, city, country, town.
بلد بلاد
Baladun, biladun. Bayan, it says dream or vision. It says no plural.
رؤية
Ru'ya, good. After that, Amira, it says period of time.
مدة
Muddatun Salma, good or better than.
خير من
Khayrun min. Maryam Khidr, fire.
نار
Narun Siraj, command.
أمر أوامر
Amrun Awamiru Joseph, affair or matter.
Amrun, Umurun.
Amrun Umurun. Michelle, way or path. Sabilun, Subulun. Brahma, with, in support of. Ma'a, Samira, around or surrounding. Hawla, Isa, between. Baina, Grant, in front of.
Mama.
Amama, Abdurrahman, behind. Khalfa, Sa'ad, above. Above. DJ. Muhammad. Above.
Above is, and there's, wait, above is,
Rama. Fawqa. Sa'ad, under is. Tahta. Amira, before is.
قبل
Qabla. Bayan, after is.
بعد
Ba'da. Muhammad Fardeen, besides or less than.
دون
Duna. Salma, all, each, every.
كل
Kullun. Maryam Khidr, some of.
بعض
Ba'dun. Siraj, like.
مثل
Mithlun. Joseph, the same. Michelle, the same. Nafsun, it says with, at, or by. Rama. Inda.
So for 13, just the letter kaf is wrong, right?
Because it says the special mudafs, and the kaf would be a harfu jar. List the 5 nouns. Al-asma'ul khamsa. List the 5 nouns. Samira, just one of them. طيب.
just one?
Just one.
Abun?
Abun. Some of you put shadda on the ba, right? There should be no shadda on the ba. It's abun. So 1 is abun. Isa, 2. Akhun, brother. Amun, father-in-law. Sa'ad. Famun, mouth. And all that's left is dhu. So you have abun, father. Akhun, brother. Amun, father-in-law. Famun, mouth. And dhu, possessor of. Translate the following sentences into Arabic. His books are new. His books are new. Salma.
كتبه جديدة.
Good. Kutubuhu jadidatun. Kutubuhu jadidatun. Kutub, right, is a non-intellectual plural, so it's treated as singular feminine. So jadidatun. Kutubuhu jadidatun. Right. All of these were jumlatun ismiyatuns. Right. So kutubuhu jadidatun. Number 2 says, her pens are old. Her pens are old. DJ? Muhammad Mardini, her pens are old. Abdurrahman, her pens. Why are we making a majroor? The word is right, the i'rab is wrong. Why are you making a mansub? Yeah. Good. أقلامها قديمة. أقلامها قديمة. Number 3 says the beautiful house is small. Muhammad Fardeen.
البيت الجميلة صغيرة.
What?
البيت الجميلة
Why
صغيرة.
is it obsessed with
البيت الجميلة صغيرة.
Why is it al-jamilatu?
Because it's feminine. Oh, البيت الجميل. البيت الجميل صغيرا.
البيت الجميل صغير. البيت الجميل صغير. Bait is a masculine word. Everything after that's going to be masculine. البيت الجميل صغير. Number 4, the girls are sleeping. I haven't corrected all the tests. I corrected about 4 or 5, but this was a common one that people got wrong. The girls are sleeping. Let's go with Bayan.
البنات نائمون.
البنات is plural feminine.
نائمين.
Huh?
نائمين.
That's just changing the state. Michelle? The girls are sleeping. No, that's sleep or dream. I want to say sleeping. Yeah, Grant?
Al-banatu na'imatun.
Good. Al-banatu na'imatun. You're going to use the sound feminine plural. You're going to use the sound feminine plural. Al-banatu na'imatun. Yes.
Manamatun wouldn't work in this one.
No, because manamatun is sleep or dream. It's like the noun of doing something. It's not the person who's doing it. But you have to describe them. Or if you said manamatun, it's like the sentence wouldn't make sense, but the sentence would now mean the girls are sleeps or dreams. So al-banatu na'imatun. Clear? Sound feminine plural, al-banatu. Therefore, the what you're saying about them, the khabar, is also going to be a sound feminine plural. Na'imatun. Number 5 says the merciful mother is coming. Siraj?
الأم الرحمة قادمة.
Rahmatu is mercy. It's the concept.
Oh, الرحيمة.
Huh? I think,
الرحيمة.
but I'm not sure.
الرحيمة
Naam.
قادمة.
One more time, the entire sentence.
الأم الرحيمة قادمة.
Good. الأم الرحيمة. الأم الرحيمة قادمة. You have مبتدأ صفة خبر. الأم الرحيمة قادمة. The merciful mother is coming. 6. Amira, the noble prophets are warners.
الأنبياء الكرماء نذر.
نعم. الأنبياء الكرماء نذر. Or النبيون الكرماء نذر. Both are fine. الأنبياء and نبيون. Doesn't matter which one you used. الأنبياء النبيون الكرماء نذر. Yes, طيب.
Same questions. You're not gonna accept Lucifer.
Huh?
Lucifer?
No. Is it? What? نذراء. نذير نذراء. No. نذيرون. نذيرون was the one I Yeah, let's see. Does Nudara exist? Might exist. What was the other one you asked about, Rama? Same thing. Oh, Balidun, huh? Nadirun, Nuzurun. Let's see. See if Nudara exists. No. Gotta go Nudurun. Did you go Nudara? Wasn't Warner's one of the words?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
On this, on 8-9 or previously?
I think a previous.
Oh, okay. So النبيون or الأنبياء والكرماء نذر. The big buildings are far. The big buildings are far. Let's go. Yeah, Saad. The big building. Good. Al-abniyatu. Al-abniyatu. Some people still have an issue with this word. Some people put al-abna'u. Al-abna'u is the sons, right? Remember, bina'un bunyanun, and the plural is al-abniyatun. So al-abniyatu al-kabiratu ba'idatun. Number 8, the man is weak. The man is weak. Yeah, Joseph. The man is weak.
El-Rajulun.
Can't have alif lam and tanween. What? I heard al-rajulun.
El-Rajulu. Sorry, Fun.
ضعيف ضعيف الرجل ضعيف الرجل ضعيف. Number 9, the painful punishment is near. Isa. العذاب الأليم قريب. Once again, العذاب الأليم قريب. Amira, number 10.
الوفود الوفود راجعون.
Is that what you put?
I think so.
I don't think so.
What did I put? I didn't. No, I think I put that. Whether it's wrong or right, I think I put that.
I think I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I think you put al-wufudu raji'un.
Oh.
I could be wrong.
Can you check?
I Sister Sarah hasn't, but I'm pretty sure because that was the one I saw in your test, and I was like, she finally got one wrong.
We're getting class.
I just remember the one that you got wrong was on these 10. And I felt like I feel like it's that one, but I could be wrong.
This is gonna haunt me. Okay.
And that's why I asked you, because once again, maybe I memorized it wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was that one, but I could be wrong. So this one, you could go al-wufudu raji'una, al-wufudu raji'una, or you could go al-wufudu raji'atun, right? Either of those two would be fine. Al-wufudu raji'atun, because a broken plural can be treated as a singular feminine, right? Can be treated. So al-wufudu raji'atun or al-wufudu raji'una. Clear? Either of those two.
Treated as plural feminine.
Say again?
Could you say the rule?
The broken plural, an intellectual broken plural, an intellectual broken plural can be treated as singular feminine.
What if it was what if the entire delegation was female? What else could the raji'at? No.
Yeah, then you would use the raji'atun. Okay, good. All right. Open up to chapter 9. Sheikh Tariq's midterm is a take home. Sheikh Mudathir's
In person.
Tomorrow?
Mhm.
Chapter 9. Ismul Isharati wal Musharu ilayhi. Introduction. Similar to Sifatun Mawsufun, this fragment requires us to be familiar with all four properties of the ism. Once we learn Ismul Isharati wal Musharu ilayhi, we'll be able to properly point at objects in Arabic. Ismul Ishara wal Musharu ilayhi. This fragment is made up of two parts. The first is a pointing word, Ismul Ishara. The second is that which is being pointed at, Al Musharu ilayhi. Is that clear? Yes, Ismul Ishara is a pointer word, the word being pointed at is called the Musharun ilayhi. Everyone say Musharun ilayhi. An example of such a fragment in English would be that cow. That would be the Ismul Ishara, and cow would be the Musharun ilayhi. The grammatical rules for this fragment are as follows. The Ismul Ishara and the Musharun ilayhi must match in all four properties. The Musharun ilayhi, underline this part, highlight it, must have an alif lam on it. The Musharun ilayhi must have an alif lam on it. Nothing can come between the Ismul Ishara and the Musharun ilayhi. Below are the Asma'ul Ishara used for pointing at something that is near. Memorize them along with their meanings, right? You've memorized these. هذا هذان هؤلاء هذه هاتان هؤلاء. Right. Below are the Asma'ul Ishara used for pointing at something that is far. Memorize them along with their meanings. ذلك ذانك أولئك تلك تانك and أولئك. Clear? It is important to note that singular and plural versions of pointer words are, that's wrong. Told them to fix it, they didn't fix it. It says are hidden flexible. Cross out hidden flexible. What are they? They are mabniyun. They are non-flexible. Does it say hidden flexible in your books?
Yes.
Anyone have a physical copy and it says hidden flexible? Amira, we're gonna message the anonymous author. Tell him that's wrong.
How many times have you sent him something that's wrong? Like this year?
This year, this is I think the first time doing it.
Oh, okay.
In previous years, I would give him a headache. I don't think we have a good relationship because of it. I'm joking. Okay, so it is important to note that singular and plural versions of pointer words are mabniyun. Clear? Mabniyun, non-flexible. But the dual versions function like the normal dual ending combinations we know from the Muslimun chart. Basically, the dual ones are mu'rabun. Clear? Technically, under mu'rabun, you have three categories, right? What was the first? Fully flexible is munsarifun. So the dual would fall under munsarifun, fully flexible. Under munsarifun, you had mamnu' min sarf, can't take tanween and can't take a kasra when in the state of jar. And then under that you had muqaddarun, hidden flexible, right? Isa, Mustashfa, Zakaria. Below are the jarrun, nasbun, and jarrun versions of the dual. Memorize them. Hadani becomes hadaini, hatani becomes hataini, dhanika becomes dhainika, and tanika becomes tainika. Let us look at a few examples. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ, that book. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ, right? Both ذَلِكَ and al-kitab, they're both singular, right? Al-kitabu is in the state of rafa, which indicates to you that ذَلِكَ, its position is a place of rafa. They're both masculine, right? and they are both technically ma'rifah. ذلك by its nature is ma'rifah, and al-kitabu because of the alif lam is ma'rifah. So that book. أولئك الرسل, those messengers. أولئك is plural, الرسل is plural, right? They're both masculine, they're both proper. الرسل is in the state of raf, which indicates to you that أولئك is also in its position in a state of rafa. Clear? The next one, we just talked about this, that intellectual broken plurals can be treated as singular feminine. So, تلك الرسل, تلك الرسل, those messengers, right? الرسل is a broken plural that is intellectual, and tilka is singular feminine. So, تلك الرسل. He says right there, notice that human broken plurals is being treated as feminine singular and is still being translated the same way, right? Because when you translate, when you have the word messengers, you're going to have to use, you're not going to say, right, that messengers, you're going to say those messengers naturally. هؤلاء القوم, هؤلاء القوم, this nation, right? هؤلاء is plural, right? Al-qawmu by its nature is also plural. Right? And then هذا القرآن, this Quran, both are singular, right? Both are masculine, both are proper, right? Both Al-Quran is in the state of raf, and هذا is in its position in a state of, or in a position of rafa. Really quickly as review before we go on to 9.2, right? 9.2, before we go on to that. Abdurrahman, what are the Asma'ul Ishara for Qareeb? Good. What are they one more time, Tayyib?
Qareeb?
Yes.
هذا هذان هؤلاء هذه هاتان هؤلاء.
Good. So هذا هذان هؤلاء هذه هاتان and هؤلاء. Michelle, what are they for Ba'id? Tilka. Good. What are they again for Ba'id, Siraj?
ذلك ذانك أولئك تلك تانك أولئك.
Good. Muhammad Fardeen, what are the ones for Qareeb?
هذا هذان هؤلاء تلك تانك no sorry هذا هذان هؤلاء هذه هذان هؤلاء.
Try that again.
هذا هذان هؤلاء هذه هاتان هؤلاء.
Good. You didn't say hatani last time. You said hadani.
Whoa.
Okay. Bayan Ba'id.
هذان هذين هاتان هاتين.
Ban. You're looking at it and you're reading the wrong one. Come on.
Sorry.
Salma, Ba'id. Bayan, if you can look at it, at least read the right one.
ذلك ذانك أولئك تلك تانك أولئك.
Good. Amira, what are the Qareeb ones?
هذا هذان هؤلاء هذه هاتان هؤلاء.
Are you sick? Allah, shafakillah. Is Ibrahim at school? He's not, is he sick?
You're so concerned with his education.
I'm very concerned about Ibrahim's education.
He's fine. He's also sick. And Salma's also sick, you know. Salma. Yeah.
You mentioned that like it was related sickness.
I'm just saying, you know, everybody's sick, you know.
I think I'm partially sick too. Is it a problem that I'm worried about Ibrahim's education?
No, it's fine.
Amira, you did Qareeb, right? Let's do DJ. What are Ba'id? Good. Okay, moving on. 9.2. Ismul Ishara. ismul ishara in other fragments. If we look at our list of fragments and try to plug in the ismul ishara in the place of an ismun, we would find it in the following fragments. After a harfu jar, in a jar majroor fragment. Or as a mudafun ilay in an idafa fragment. Or after a harfu nasb, in a harfu nasbin wasmuha fragment, which we'll study in the next chapter. All of that he'll cover right now. Okay, so first of all, he says we would not find it in a mawsufun sifa or as a mudafun because it does not make sense in language. Take a look at the following examples. Fi hadha, in this. Make sense? Right? So number one, where he says after a harfu jar in a jar majroor fragment, this is your example. Fi hadha. Does that make sense? Yes? Tayyib, you look concerned.
Yeah, I'm just.
You good? Yeah?
I'm just a little sick.
You're just a little sick. Is anyone not sick? You know, as we creep into like November and December, then it gets out of control.
You didn't say the last part.
Huh?
I said I'm just a little sick, but I showed up.
Because you live 30 minutes away. I do not condone this behavior, Amira. Just want to make it clear, I'm not I'm simply just the referee. But I can be bought out. Fi hadha, in this, okay? After a harfu jar in a jar majroor fragment. Number two says, or as a mudafun ilay in an idafa fragment. So the second example that you're given is ba'da dhalika. Ba'da dhalika. Or if I said something like qabla hadha, before this. Qabla hadha. Or ba'da hadihi, after this. Right? That's an idafa fragment. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay.
These are called dharf, right?
The ba'da.
Could dalika or these ishara only be mudafun in this, like in these examples?
Mudafun ilay.
Yeah, mudafun ilay when using dharf. Like, could you use?
As it can you use it as mudaf?
No, could you use like a regular noun and like an ism? No, it wouldn't make sense, right? It'd have to be with the dharf. That's the only way.
Yeah.
To make the dalika into mudafun ilay.
You could say qadamu hadha. No, you could say, for example, if I said, no, you can use a normal ism. Okay. For example, if I said, qalamu hadha al-waladi, qalamu hadha al-waladi. The boy, sorry. Essentially, it's qalamu hadha al-waladi is this boy's pen. Pen of this boy. Pen of this boy. That makes sense? So you can. قلم هذا الولد. Right. Okay.
In that scenario, هذا is the
مضاف إليه. Yeah. And الولد is the مشار إليه.
قلم is the مضاف.
Correct. So قلم هذا الولد جديد. This boy's pen is new.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
From the like 2 pages ago where it says that, or you said that the dual words are munsarifun.
Yes.
So so the difference between munsarifun and mamnu' min as-sarf, because like these, for example, they look the same for nasb and for jar. But the difference for mamnu' min as-sarf is that it's like it's own category where it just doesn't.
Yeah. So I get the confusion, right? But remember the duals function in a certain way, and the way a normal dual functions is alif noon and ya noon.
Oh. Okay.
Right. So if it can do that, then it's automatically munsarifun. Right. But as for mamnu' min as-sarf, right, we're talking about patterns of words that do not take tanween, and in addition to that, they never ever in the state of jar, will they take a kasra? Rather, they'll take a fatha.
So they fit into the normal pattern of duals, so it's okay.
Exactly. Hadani and hadani, hatani, all of them, they fit into the normal pattern of duals, and that's why they're considered munsarifun.
So Jam'u Mudhakkar as-Salim was also partially flexible.
No.
Well, they don't have tanween, and it only takes.
But they function as a Jam'u al-Mudhakkar. They, right, plurals have their own rules. If it can function within the rule of the plurals, then it's good. Right? If you look at all your mamnu' min as-sarf words, right? Like the Jam'u al-Mudhakkar as-Salim, their endings are already una and ina. So if they can fit onto that pattern, they're considered in their own sense munsarif, right? But as for mamnu' min as-sarf, they have their specific patterns, and those specific patterns will not take tanween and will not in their jar state not take a kasra. I see the overlap. Like I see what you guys are saying.
Because when she asked the question, it didn't like occur to me that this seemed like it would not fit into the.
Because it takes a kasra.
Just because when we went over the section, we just talked about like non-Arabic names, it takes fatha or it takes dhamma. So this seems a little different.
So because it falls on the dual pattern?
Because it falls in the middle, like its painting is in the middle.
No, it's simply because it functions like a normal dual word. Because it functions like a normal dual word. It's more about that linguistically, this word you can go hadani and hadaini. And because of that, it functions like a normal dual word, like rajulani, rajulaini. So because it functions like that, it's considered munsarif.
Oh, so it's munsarifun. It's not. Okay.
No, it's not. It's not munsarif. It's munsarif. It's munsarif.
I was confusing myself.
I also had a quick question.
Yeah.
In the قلم هذا الولد, what does the إضافة قلم هذا mean? Because if like هذا الولد means this boy, what does the إضافة mean?
The pen of this.
Okay.
Right. Al-waladi is technically extra here. Like I could be pointing at you and I say قلم هذا جديد. Essentially, it's almost like saying his pen, right, is new. But
okay.
The difference is like I'm pointing at you.
Okay.
Saying his pen. Clear? Okay, he says after that, in addition to the basic examples mentioned above, we also find an ismul ishara in more complex fragments. We find an ismul ishara wa musharun a fragment connected to another fragment. For example, if I wanted to say in this house, in Arabic, I would say fi hadha al-bayti, fi hadha al-bayti, right? Notice that we have a jarun wa majrurun fragment and an ismun ishara wa musharun ilay, right? Fi hadha al-bayti, fi hadha is your jarun majrurun, and hadha al-bayti is your ismul ishara and musharun ilay. Does that make sense, Abdurrahman? Recall that ismul ishara and musharun ilay must match in all four properties. Therefore, they must match in status. In the above example, fi hadha al-bayti, we see that the effect of the harfu jar transfers through the ismul ishara, and we see the musharun ilay in the jarrun status. Does that make sense? Fi hadha al-bayti, fi is a harfu jar. Therefore, hadha, it's mabniyun, but its position is that of jar. And al-bayti, which is the musharun ilay, has to be in the same state as the ismul ishara that preceded it. So you end up with fi hadha al-bayti. You wouldn't ever have fi hadha al-bayta or fi hadha al-baytu, because fi is a harfu jar, so it naturally forces the hadha to be in a position of jar. Therefore, the musharun ilay will also be al-bayti, fi hadha al-bayti. Wait, hold on. He gives a few examples. He says, لِهَؤُلَاءِ الْقَوْمِ لِهَؤُلَاءِ الْقَوْمِ لِهَؤُلَاءِ الْقَوْمِ for this nation, right? Li is harfu jar, ha'ula is an ismul ishara, and al-qawmi is the musharun ilay. Li ha'ula il-qawmi for this nation, or the other example he gives is من هذه القرية, from this town or from this village. هذه came after حرف جر, so therefore القرية the مشار إليه will also have a كسرة. Or we end up with بيت ذلك الرجل, بيت ذلك الرجل. Essentially, this is what you were asking about, Grant, when I said قلم هذا الولد. This is another example, right? بيت ذلك الرجل, house of that man, house of that man, right? قلم هذا الولد, pen of this boy. So بيت ذلك الرجل, house of that man. ذلك over here is coming as a مضاف إليه. ذلك over here is coming as a مضاف إليه, and الرجل is coming as the مشار إليه. Is that clear? In the above examples, an easy way to figure out the status of the musharun ilayh is to think of the ismul ishara as a pipe that transfers any status change through it directly to the musharun ilayh. Okay, go ahead.
So the Domayer is Marifa. Are these also these
The
ishara?
Asma'ul Ishara Ma'rifa.
Okay.
Yeah, they're under the Ma'rifa category, right? We had I think in order roughly, it was Alif Lam, right?
Oh yeah.
Lam Ta'rif. It was Ismu Alamin, a proper name, right? Then it was Ad-Dama'iru, whether they were Muttasila or Munfasila, whether they were attached or detached. Then right after that was Asma'ul Ishara. Then after that was Al-Asma'ul Mawsula. Then number 6 was Al-Munada, the one or the thing being summoned or called. And then number 7, which came up in a later chapter, was the Mudaf, when it is attributed to a Mudafun ilay that is Ma'rifa. Baytul Rajuli, Baytu Ar-Rajuli. So the Mudaf, when it's Mudafun ilay is Ma'rifa. Okay, 9.3. 9.3, this, please pay attention. Please pay attention, this one, okay? Pointing at an idafa. Pointing at an idafa, okay? Pointing at an idafa. Now, generally, pause before you read this section. When you're pointing at something, right? I say, هذا الطالب, this student. The ismul ishara comes, and then the thing that you're pointing at. هذا الطالب. If I said, هذا الكتاب, and I'm pointing at this book. Is that clear? هذه السيارة. The thing I'm pointing at comes second. It comes after the ismul ishara. Do we understand? So you have the pointer word and then the thing that you're pointing at. Good? What if you want to point at an idafa? What if you want to point at an idafa? Now, don't read this section. Automatically, you're thinking, I'll just do the same, right? Yes? So you're like, you know, هذا القلم, this pen, ismul ishara and then the pen, right? هذا القلم. Clear? This pen. Now I say, okay, good. This pen is no longer going to be referred to as al-qalam. Now it will be referred to as qalamu Muhammadin, Muhammad's pen. Clear? But we want to do the same thing. Originally, we pointed at the pen. We said, هذا القلم, this pen. But this is no longer al-qalam. This is, we renamed this to qalamu Muhammadin. Now we want to point at this. So you're like, okay, I'll do the same thing. So you'll say, if you did the same thing, what would you say?
No, you said if you did it wrong. You said if you follow the same thing. I thought you wanted
No,
to
remove the alif lam.
You just put that in.
Go after ishara.
Oh, say it.
هذا قلم محمد.
هذا قلم محمد. Amira, this is why you should not show up to class when you're sick, because you make sick mistakes then. هذا قلم محمد. هذا قلم محمد. Is this pointing at the musharun ilayna? When you said هذا قلم محمد? No? So what happened when you said هذا قلم محمد? Huh? Okay, but what happened?
It became the khabar.
It became a jumla ismiya. This is Muhammad's pen.
Hmm.
It became الجملة اسمية. هذا قلم محمد. هذا مبتدأ، قلم خبر، محمد مضاف إليه. Do you see the issue? So هذا القلم, this pen. But you want to point at an idafa, you're like, okay, I'll do the same thing. Why is there a separate section on it? The problem is when you do it, you end up with something else. You end up with a sentence. هذا قلم محمد. You end up with, this is Muhammad's pen. So we need a solution to fix this. Does that make sense? Yes? The solution to fix it is to switch the order. قلم محمد هذا. قلم محمد هذا. This pen of Muhammad's. This pen of Muhammad. Okay? Now, overall, the amount of times that you'll use this is very rare or just not as frequent, right? But it happens in the Quran and you do see it. And you have to know the difference. Okay? When you're pointing at an idafa, you got to switch the order. Clear? Because if you don't, then you end up in a sentence. Right? Because I did not want you to say, when I say, hey, say it, say هذا القلم محمد, because that's not an idafa construction. القلم محمد, by its nature, is not an idafa construction. Your mudafin can't have alif lam. Right? So you say قلم محمد هذا. Okay, now he says, pointing at an idafa. Recall that a mudafun cannot have alif lam. Also recall that the musharun ilay must have an alif lam. These are two opposites. So when pointing at an idafa, how are these two rules reconciled? How would you point, for instance, at the fragment Baytullah? Hada Baytullah would not be a fragment. This is actually a sentence because there is no al on the word following the ismul ishara, right? So Hada Baytullah means this is the house of Allah. Hada is your mubtada, Baytu is your khabar. On the other hand, هذا البيت الله would be incorrect because baytun is a mudaf and cannot have alif lam. The solution is to place the ismul ishara after the idafa. The correct way to point at the fragment Baytullahi would be Baytullahi hada, this house of Allah. Clear? So when you translate it, it's still going to translate with the ismul ishara in the front. Baytullahi hada, this house of Allah. Take a look at the following examples. Right, these are in the Quran. So, في عامهم هذا, في عامهم هذا, in this year of theirs, in this year of theirs. Clear? Or in Surah Al-Kahf, بورقكم هذه, with this silver coin of yours, with this silver coin of yours. Amihim and waraqikum are both idafa constructions, right? Biwaraqikum hadihi, with this silver coin of yours, or also liqa'a yawmikum hadha, liqa'a yawmikum hadha, the meeting of this day of yours, the meeting of this day of yours. Okay. Drill 1, it says, answer the following conceptual questions. Number 1, Ismu Ishara and Musharun Ilay match in, Michelle? Abdurrahman? All 4 properties. Ismu Ishara and Musharun Ilay match in all 4 properties. Number 2 says, true or false, if an ismul ishara is followed by a word with alif lam, then it is a fragment. Siraj?
Yes.
Yeah, true. Number 3, in order to
Can I ask a question for number 2?
Yeah.
So in that, by that logic, then we can have a word that is nakira or that doesn't have an alif lam.
You're asking about number 2?
Well, I'm asking in general, is it possible to have after ismul ishara something that is nakira or doesn't have an alif lam?
Yeah, but then you would have a sentence. You wouldn't have a fragment.
I see.
Hada baytun. This is a house, right? So the point is, if an ismul ishara is followed by a word with an alif lam, then you have a fragment, meaning you have an ismul ishara and musharun ilay fragment. But if it's nakira, then you have a sentence. Does that make sense? Yeah. هذا بيت هذه بنت, right? Number 3, in order to point at an idafa, you place the ismul ishara blank the idafa طيب after the idafa. Good. It says drill 2, fill in the chart with the appropriate translation. Number 1 says هذا. Abdurrahman? This. هذا, this. Number 2, DJ, هذاني. These two. These two. Good. Number 3, Grant, it says these. هؤلاء. هؤلاء. Technically, right, to get very technical, he's right. He's absolutely right. هؤلاء, right? But it matters what, in English, it matters what these are. If these are men, then هؤلاء, right? And if these are pens or books or cars, then it's هذه. هذه, the singular, feminine, right? But we'll leave هؤلاء, okay? Number 4, bayan, it says this female.
هاتين.
Muhammad Fardeen.
This هذا هاتاني. It's هذا. Same thing. هذاني هؤلاء. Sorry.
Muhammad Ali. This female.
هذه.
Look at Muhammad Ali driving and answering Arabic questions at the same time. May Allah protect the buildings. We know the foundation of the buildings is Arabic. Anything above that, we don't know. This female is هذه. Yes. Where? No, it's the way it's like, it's written like that, but the alif is the little alif.
In the book, it's not, but it's
like I'm saying, it's written like that, but between the ha and the dal is that little alif. It's never written ha alif. Yeah, right. This is correct. Right? If you were putting your grammatical signs, anyone that knows Arabic and they saw that, they would read that as hada, right? But when you have all the vowel signs, or you see in some books, between the ha and the dal will be that little line, right? It actually used to be written incorrectly in parts of the book and had them corrected. But they used to, you don't write hada with ha alif. Clear? Hada is not written with ha alif. Neither hadihi, the same thing. The ha is not written with a ha alif, right? It's written as if the alif is not there, and that there's that little line between the ha and the dal to indicate that that letter is stretched. This female, Muhammad Ali said, was هذه. Is that clear, Muhammad Fardeen? هذه.
Yes, Sheikh.
Okay, good. Let's see. Salma, both of these female.
هاتاني.
Hatani. Good. Number 6 says that male. DJ? Huh? ذلك. Good. ذلك. ذلك. Same thing. ذلك is not written with an alif after the dhal. Rather, there is the little line. Clear? There's no long alif between the dhal and the lam. 7. Michelle says ذَانِكَ. Yeah, those two, both of those, and that would be masculine. 8, Rama. Those ulaika. Once again, this is under the assumption that we're talking about a intellectual plural, right? If it's a non-intellectual plural, then the answer for those would be tilka. Tilka, right? Number 9 says that female. Amira?
Tilka.
Tilka. And then number 10 says both of them. Both of them female. Maryam Khidr.
هاتان.
Joseph?
Tanika.
One more time.
Tanika.
Good. Tanika. Both of them is lil ba'id. So tanika. Says drill 3. Choose the appropriate pointer to create an ism ishara wa musharun ilay fragment. Tell whether it should come before or after. Tell whether it should come before or after. The idea is that you want to create a ism ishara musharun ilay, and it wants you to do qareeb and ba'id. Okay? So the first word is al-qawmu. Al-qawmu. Tayyib, before or after? Before. Close to you would be?
Since it's plural, what would you use? Like this? Would you say this or those? Say this, right?
You mean this or these?
Yes. Sorry.
You could use both. I would probably go with
Yeah.
هذا القوم. هذا القوم could work, right? But you could also go هؤلاء القوم. هؤلاء القوم. Let's go with هؤلاء to not confuse people. هؤلاء القوم. هؤلاء القوم. And then far away would be? Yeah, أولئك القوم. So هؤلاء القوم and أولئك القوم. And then after that, Siraj, the word is قومي. So before or after?
After.
After. Why after?
Because it's an idafa.
Because it's an idafa construction and you're trying to get a fragment. So you're going to put the idafa construction first. So after. So close to you would be?
هؤلاء.
Yeah. قومي هؤلاء. قومي هؤلاء. And far away would be?
قومي أولئك.
قومي أولئك. Really quickly, if we were to translate, right? The one Tayyib did. So you did هؤلاء القوم طيب, right? هؤلاء القوم would be these people. These people. And أولئك القوم would be those people. Is that clear? Number 1, هؤلاء القوم, these people. أولئك القوم, those people. Okay. The one Siraj did, قومي هؤلاء. قومي هؤلاء. We translate as these people of mine. These people of mine. And قومي أولئك, we translate as those people of mine. Right? Once again, remember, if Siraj puts the ismul ishara before, we end up with هؤلاء قومي. These are my people, which is a jumla ismiya. Or you end up with أولئك قومي. Those are my people, which is also a jumla ismiya. Okay. Number 3 says al-yawmu. Al-yawmu. Muhammad Fardeen, before or after?
Before.
Before. Good. So close to you would say?
After.
What? No. Let's try that. The word is al-yawmu. Would you put the ismul ishara before or after?
Before.
Before. So for the column that says close to you, the ismul ishara would be?
هذا اليوم.
هذا اليوم. هذا اليوم. And for the column that says far away from you, you would say?
Far away would be أولئك. No. Far away for بعيد is
It's the first one. It's the first one on the ba'id. What is it, Bayan?
ذلك اليوم.
نعم. ذلك اليوم. So هذا اليوم and ذلك اليوم. هذا اليوم, this day. ذلك اليوم, that day. This day and that day. My youngest daughter, she hasn't understood the concept, although she's almost 5, you know, of like, there's no yesterday, tomorrow, right? Everything is another day. Every narration of an incident starts with another day. Like, I don't know if it's today, tomorrow, yesterday. She refuses to change. Number 4 says, Yawmina. Yawmina. Will it be before or after, Salma?
It'd be after.
Be after. Good. After. So you would say?
يومنا هذا ويومنا ذلك.
Good. يومنا هذا, يومنا هذا, and يومنا ذلك. So once again, يومنا هذا would mean this day of ours. And يومنا ذلك would mean that day of ours. Number 5. Number 5, Muhammad Mardini. Narullahi. Before or after? Good. You're pointing at idafa construction, so you got to put it after. So your people decided this was one of those words because your people said it's feminine. So honor your people. Good. Narullahi hadihi and narullahi tilka, right? This fire of yours, right? You're laughing of honor. Narullahi hadihi, this fire of yours, and narullahi tilka, right? Sorry. Narullahi hadihi, this fire of Allah, and narullahi tilka, that fire of Allah.
On number 4 on the meme, it's kasra just because
Out
of context, right?
Yeah, out of context. Yeah. Number 6. Let's go. Khadija. Number 6, al-ghulamaini. Before or after?
Al-Ghulamaini. Before?
Before.
Yeah.
The only time you put it after is if it's a idafa construction. So, like she said before, what are you going to use, Khadija?
هذا الغلامين.
Al-ghulamaini is how many young boys?
Oh, sorry. Plural, right?
Not plural.
Oh, sorry, dual. So هذان الغلامين, and then ذلك غلامين.
Okay, so Khadija, you're right and wrong at the same time. Just listen to the 2 words. هذان الغلامين. Do they sound like they don't match?
هذان الغلامين.
Ani and Aini, you put them together. هذان الغلامين. You have the right word, هذان. It just wants you to adjust it slightly.
Oh, they have to match, right?
Yeah.
هذان.
What's the other version of al-ghulamaini, Khadija?
The other what? Sorry.
The other version of al-ghulamaini.
Like
is the nasbun and jarrun version. What's the raf'un version?
the غلامين.
Yeah, what's the raf'un version of that?
غلامون, right?
Siraj?
الغلامani.
Al-ghulamani. Al-ghulamani can become al-ghulamaini. Al-ghulamani in the state of raf, al-ghulamaini in the state of nasb and jar. So, Siraj, what's the answer going to be for the close, for the qareeb?
الغلامين هذين.
And Grant over here shaking his head too. Grant's shaking his head too.
Oh, sorry. هذين الغلامين. I don't know why I put it after.
Your problem is he made two mistakes. He made two mistakes. I don't know if you guys caught the second one. You didn't get, you caught the first mistake. Everyone caught the first mistake.
I don't think I caught it.
He said al-ghulamaini. He put ism al-ishara second. The other mistake that no one heard, but I heard it, is he said al-ghulamaini al-hadaini.
Would it be
Wait, really?
hadani, ghulamani?
I got my receipts.
Okay.
You
I
added
didn't
alif lam to the word.
Okay, my bad. I don't know why I said that. That's so weird.
Fix it. What's the answer?
هذين الغلامين.
A lot of hesitancy. Yeah. هذين الغلامين. هذين الغلامين. Good. And then the ba'id version would be?
ذينك ذينك الغلامين.
Good. ذينك الغلامين. ذينك الغلامين. So once again, هذين الغلامين and ذينك الغلامين, which would translate as these two young boys and those two young boys. Number 7 says نساء العالمين. نساء العالمين, women of the world. Michelle. Before or after? Huh? After, because in the law in construction. Go ahead. Yeah, everyone's scared to make similar mistakes to Siraj. Go ahead, say it. You said it, just say it louder. Yeah, نساء العالمين هؤلاء. نساء العالمين هؤلاء and نعم نساء العالمين أولئك. So نساء العالمين هؤلاء, these women of the world, and نساء العالمين أولئك, those women of the world.
So the alamina is Mudakar is Salim, right?
Correct. So the word alamun, right? Alamun, alamuna, alamina, right? Alamun is a created being, right? So the idea with alamun, it's like it gets thrown into the category of Jam' al-Mudhakkar as-Salim, right? But they call it in Arabic mulhaqun bi Jam' al-Mudhakkar as-Salim, like it's attached to the sound masculine plural. So it's like instead of women of the world, instead of saying like women of all created beings, which sounds weird. Drill 4. Do you guys need like a 3-4 minute break? No? No, it's 11:02. It's like 11:03. Class ends at 11:30. Huh? Can you make it? Okay, let's give it a 3-minute break. Let's give it a 3-minute break. 3
I
minutes.
have a question. Do you want me to ask it?
I'm halfway up. Even before let's get who had a question?
I do. Do you want me to ask it after the break?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's go. We're gonna go to drill 4 tomorrow. Okay. Right now, I want to go to drill 5. Drill 5. Drill 5. Drill 5. All right. So usually we can. Siraj hasn't returned yet. I'm worried.
Oh, he thought it was a 10-minute part.
Doing stuff. Okay. Oh, Siraj is back. Siraj. Okay, everyone's back. Okay, let's go. Okay, drill 5. Translate from Arabic to English. Amira, you had a question.
Yes. Okay, I was gonna ask for the examples that they're giving us earlier, like on page 107, when it says Baytu dhalika rajulu or Baytu dhalika rajuli.
Yeah, Baytu. Yeah.
And then like and then you could also have something like Baytu rajuli dhalika.
Yeah, 2 different phrases. Okay, so that's good. So Amira's asking about this one. Baytu dhalika rajuli, and you said Baytu rajuli dhalika, right? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Baytu dhalika rajuli, what you have here is dhalika rajul is an ismul ishara and a musharun ilay. Clear? Dhalika rajul is an ismul ishara and a musharun ilay. So you have that man. Okay? And then you add the word house before it, and now you say house of that man. Clear? Yes? So Baytu is your mudaf, dhalika is your mudafun ilay, and ar-rajuli is your musharun ilay. Compare that to the statement that Amira gave us, which was Baytul rajuli dhalika. Correct, Amira? Right? Baytul rajuli dhalika would be that man's house. 2 different things are being pointed at. In the one over here on the board or on the screen, the man is being pointed at. Baytu dhalika rajuli. Clear? That man's, or sorry, house of that man. But in the other sentence, if you switch it and you end up with Baytul rajuli dhalika, you're now pointing at what? You're now pointing at the house. Baytul rajuli dhalika. Right? Clear?
So say that in English. What would the second one, Baytu rajuli dhalika, what would that mean in English?
That man's house. That man's house. Baytul rajuli dhalika, that man's house. Mira, you see the difference? Yeah. So in this one, you're pointing at the man, right? And that's why the ismul ishara came before the musharun ilay. In that one, you're pointing at the house, but the house is connected to an idafa construction. So you push the ismul ishara to Baytul rajuli dhalika, that man's house.
You said in the second one, Baytul rajuli dhalika, the ismul ishara is pointing at the bayt, it's pointing at the house.
And that's why we were forced to push the ismul ishara till the end, because bayt is part of an idafa construction, right? And because it's part of an idafa construction and we want to point at it, the ismul ishara has to come at the end. So Baytul rajuli dhalika, that man's house.
Okay.
They're very similar, but you notice it when you put them up against each other, that there's 2 different things being pointed at.
Okay.
You understand it? I feel like that okay is kind of like.
Yeah, I'm just the house of that. For the example that they gave us, Baytu dhalika rajuli, we can put the ismul ishara in between, or sorry, yeah, why is dhalika in between? Oh, because bayt is the mudaf. You said bayt is the mudaf.
Correct. This is our phrase. This is our phrase right here. ذلك الرجل, that man. Right? That's our phrase. That man. That's اسم الإشارة and مشار إليه.
Oh, okay.
Okay? But we want to talk about that man's house. So we simply just add the word baytu before it. So baytu is your mudafun.
Uh-huh.
This is your mudafun ilay. And this is your musharun ilay. Right? And once again, baytu dhalika rajuli means
House of that man. House of that man.
House of that man.
That man's house.
yeah, that man's house. Sorry. Noun. Baytu dhalika rajuli.
House of that.
House of that man. Yeah, how technically. Yeah, house of that man. Right?
Yeah, because if you said that man's house, then you're saying that other word.
Yeah. If you
Oh.
what was the Amira's was?
بيت الرجل ذلك.
Yeah. Yeah. Baytu dhalika rajuli. So you have that man, right? So Baytu dhalika rajuli is house of that man. House of that man. And you're pointing at the man.
Mm-hmm.
Pointing at the man, right? But when you say Amira's was
Visualize. Like if you say the first one, you're pointing at the man, not the house. Versus the other one, you're pointing at the house.
the other one was sorry,
بيت الرجل ذلك.
yes. Well, this is wait, listen, look, this is what happens. Watch. You'll see some overlap right now. Watch. So this is mudafun, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And this is mudafun ilay. Look at this one now. Look how both times Baytu played the mudaf, but the mudafun ilay was different. In the first one, dhalika was the mudafun ilay. In the second one, al-rajuli is the mudafun ilay.
Mm-hmm.
You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And then now we want to point at it, so it becomes dhalika. And technically this right here, all of this right here becomes my
Okay.
musharun ilay.
Okay.
Baytu rajuli dhalika.
Okay. Okay, I think
And we
I
said
think
translates as
This man's house.
That man's house.
huh? Yeah, that.
Oh, sorry.
I think it's the English that's confusing me because
Yeah,
that
the English is slightly confusing.
yeah, but maybe that it doesn't really matter, but like maybe if we're pointing at the house in Beitul Rajuli Dalika, would it be like that house of that man, which belongs to that man? It doesn't matter, but I'm just like
So the
I don't
first one, technically, we're very literal, right? House of that man. House of that man, right? And then this one is yeah. So Baytul Rajul is what? Man's house. That man's house. That man's house. In English, you're like house of that man's house.
Okay, so you like this man's house.
Yeah.
That man's house. Then like you're saying the other one is like
House.
yeah.
Yeah. So the difference is simply what you're pointing at in the Arabic,
Okay.
right? The English is kind of confusing, right? But in the first one, you're pointing at the man. He's the focus, right? You're like, hey, whose house is this, right? Whose house is this? Right? You're like, Baytu dhalika rajul. Clear? But then you're like, the second one, you're like which house? Right? No, the second one, you're like which house?
Yes, you answered this man's house.
Yeah, that man's
Oh, sorry.
that man's house. Yeah, you're saying that man's house, essentially. Right? Does that make sense, Samira? Somewhat?
Or that is the man's house.
No, it's not a sentence. That's a sentence. That is a sentence, what you just said. Okay, drill five, quickly. Right? Okay, we said 4 tomorrow, guys. Remind me to go back to 4. Drill 5. Isa, read the Arabic.
That is صغيرة.
في هذه الدار الصغيرة means
This small house.
in this small house. في هذه الدار الصغيرة, in this small house. Dar is feminine because the Arab said so. In this small house. Amira, number 2.
في غرفة الولد القديمة هذه.
في غرفة الولد القديمة هذه.
In this old room of the boy.
Yeah, also could be said as in this boy's old room. Yeah. In this boy's old room. In this boy's old room. In this boy's old room. Really quickly, looking at this one, right? You have fi. What's fi called, Michelle? Harfu jarrin. Ghurfati is the grant. It's the majrurun. Al-waladi, Abdurrahman, is the mudafun ilay. So once again, fi harfu jarrin. غرفتي مجرور الولد مضاف إليه القديمة سعد صفة, right? And then هذه is the اسم الإشارة, and the اسم الإشارة got pushed all the way to the end because you were pointing at an إضافة construction. Is that clear? The إضافة construction was غرفة الولد, but it got pushed even further because after the إضافة construction you had a صفة that was describing the room. So the اسم الإشارة had to get pushed even further. في غرفة الولد القديمة هذه. In this boy's old room. Yeah.
So the هذه is pointing at غرفة.
Correct. The هذه is pointing at غرفة. Number 3. Salma.
وراء بيتي.
اسم الإشارة, but anyways.
Sorry. وراء بيته القديم.
وراء بيته القديم.
Behind his old house.
Nothing to do with them. Go ahead.
Behind his old house.
Behind his old house. Sure, far behind his old house. Far behind his old house. Number 4, Muhammad Mardini. من تحت يده الكبيرة means from under or from beneath his big hand. From under or beneath his big hand. Remember, al-kabira is feminine because yad. Because yad is body parts and duals, and body parts and duals are considered feminine. Clear? So, من تحت يده الكبيرة. Number 5. Bayan.
من أمامهم ومن خلفهم. From in front of them and from behind them.
From in front of them and from behind them. Number 6. Rama. يد الامرأة القوية. يد الامرأة القوية. The strong. Yeah, both mean the same thing, right? The hand of the strong woman. The hand of the strong woman. Grant, I think I know the question you're going to ask. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so the sifa could be describing either one, right?
Correct. Correct. He's absolutely right. Al-Qawiyya over here, technically, linguistically, can be a sifa of either words. So technically, you could translate it as the strong hand of the woman or the woman's strong hand, right? Once again, context will determine this. Context will determine this. But because the nature of the first two words, sorry, no, it can't be. Yeah. Sorry, no, because al-qawi, it says al-qawiyyati. It says, sorry. Yeah, it switched it on the two. No, that's what it did. That's why I said that. Look at 6 and 7. It switched it. Do you guys see 6 and 7? Right? So yadul imra'at al-qawiyyati, right, would be the hand of the strong woman. Clear? Because al-qawiyya-ti. And number 7 says, Grant, read it.
Yadul imra'atil qawiyatu.
Yadul imra'atil qawiyatu. Now over here clearly, al-qawiyya is a sifa of yad, right? Because they match in i'rab. So this would be the strong hand of the woman. Clear? But if they just gave you one and the word al-qawiyya didn't have a vowel sign at the end, then context would determine what, right? If it's yadul imra'ah al-qawiyya and there's no vowel signs, right? On yad, if there's no vowel signs on yad, and there's no vowel signs on al-qawiyya, then you could read it in multiple ways, right? So number 6, yadul imra'ati al-qawiyyati, right? The hand of the strong woman, and yadul imra'ati al-qawiyyatu, 7, the strong hand of the woman. Number 8. Number 8. Read it. Yeah, Maryam Khidr, read it.
مع هذه النفوس الكثيرة.
مع النفوس الكثيرة, which means
with these people's selves,
with these many souls. So النفوس الكثيرة are many souls with these many souls.
Is that a typo? It says nufus.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it should be nufus. Nufus. With this many souls. If you did that with this multitude of souls, you could do that. But with these many souls. And then number 9. Number 9. Muhammad Fardeen. Number 9, Bayan. Oh, go ahead. Read the Arabic.
بينه وبين القوم.
There's no
بينه بينه وبين قومه الأقوياء.
أقوياء. Read it again.
أقوياء. Okay, sorry. I'm driving, so I.
Oh, don't read it again. Don't read it again. Bayan. There's only one person that has permission to do that, Muhammad Ali. But go ahead. Bayan, go ahead, read it.
بينه وبين قومه الأقوياء, between him and between his strong people.
Yeah, between him and his strong people, his strong nation, either would work. Between him and between his strong people. Let's see. Hold on. Guys, I know you guys have already studied for Sheikh Mundathir's class, so I'm not worried about that. But if you get some time today, look at drill 7. Drill 7. Drill 7, place the harakat based on your knowledge of grammar thus far, or so far. do of it what you can, inshallah, right? Just go through it. You don't have to turn anything in. If you email it, I will delete it. But just try to do what you can, right? In addition, if you get through it and you can translate some of it, then, may Allah bless you, right? But only do this after you study for his midterm, inshallah. His midterm takes priority. Okay? Once you finish, then do this. Like when you need a break in between studying and his midterm, do this. Inshallah. Why is that funny, Abdurrahman? All right. وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله تعالى.